They obviously have enough business. So.
Oh. Okay, we'll call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for January 13th. First item on our agenda this evening is roll call.
Barraza, Lansky.
Here.
Beck, Malay, Malone.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Solfa.
Here.
Barron. Here. Lehman. Here. Lohman. Here. Pieper.
Here.
Fehrenbach.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
White.
Here.
That's 14, 13.
Robin was the only one that let me know that she would not be here tonight. Yeah, Tony and Abby, I think, are both going to be late. Okay. Up second is a reminder for anybody in the audience tonight that if you come up to use the mic, make sure you can see the little green light on it and adjust it so we can hear you and so it can get broadcast. Item 3 would be a rule of minutes. There are none this evening. Item 4 is items to be removed, added, or changed. We do have a couple of changes here. We're going to move 2 items to the consent agenda, 7.5 and 7.6, the 2 truck purchases. We'll move to the consent agenda. And then item 7.2, we're going to move down to 7.5 to try to make sure we have everybody here that's available tonight by the time we get to it. So everybody okay with that? Make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Then we have matters from the public for items that are not on the agenda tonight. Is anybody here for anything not on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none of them, we'll move on to item 6, which is the consent agenda. Thank you, Barron.
The consent agenda reads as follows. Approvals, Resolution 2026-1, approving electric tree trimming contract. Resolution 2026-15-R, amending the budget for the purchase of 106 through 118 Batavia Avenue. Resolution 2026-12-R, authorization to purchase one 2026 Ford truck from Morrow Brothers Ford of Greenfield, Illinois for $58,326. Resolution 2026-14-R, authorization to purchase one 2026 Vacan combined sewer cleaner from EJ Equipment, Inc. from Manitou, Illinois for $588,174.25. I move we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion by Barron, second by Solfa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to the regular agenda. First item is 7.1, Resolution 2026-003R, creating an interested parties registry for TIF number 7. Scott will start that off for us. Good evening.
Thank you. This is the first step in the analysis and whether we create a new TIF 7. TIF 7 is proposed to be on the west side of downtown, southwest side of downtown, generally south of Wilson Street, north of Union, west of River Street, and on both sides of Batavia Avenue. It includes areas that are in TIF 3 and former TIF 1, because TIF 1 expired at the end of the year. So it does include some different properties in there. We have some various properties there that are ripe for redevelopment. And we also felt that because of the boundaries of TIF 3, that it makes sense to create a new TIF district to cover these areas more specifically. As we age in a community, we find that it's more effective to have specific TIF districts for projects rather than a massive area that may or may not have projects. So we are trying to do these more targeted when we do. If this happens, it would also truncate parts of TIF 3 east of the river for the most part. because of the contiguity requirements and everything else. So if that happens, the various taxing bodies would see what I'll call a windfall from the tax value that would be taken from the TIF from those different properties that are removed from the TIF district. So this is the first step. This is a resolution that starts the interested persons registry. It allows for people that are interested can sign up on a list, and then any required mailings or notifications are then sent to those people on the list besides those that have to be sent notices by statute.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, any comments? Been through a few of these for different TIFs, so it's all following the procedures. Okay. Then I will make the motion that we recommend to council resolution 2026-003R, creating an interested parties registry for TIF number 7.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Solfa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then next will be item 7.3, which is resolution 2026-004R, authorized change order number 6 with IHC Construction Companies LLC for the Phase 2A wastewater treatment plant rehab project.
All right, so this is a change order for the ongoing construction at the wastewater treatment plant. So originally, we had an original contract price for $42 million plus dollars. We had one previous change order for about $80,000. This one's a little bit more for $232,000. However, because everything's getting completed earlier, and we had everything budgeted, this is kind of a situation where it's not going to really impact anything in the long run. And these particular changes are to try to improve site safety, accessibility, process control in terms of stormwater runoff, pipe conflicts, and basically pedestrian accessibility and safety near the plant, which everybody knows where it is, right? Okay. So that's basically it, and Andrea can talk about more technical details.
Covered it very well.
So
Yeah, and we have a unused balance. We're actually in there is the credit that was part of the original contract, so they included that in this. Unfortunately, Jerry's going to make me come back one other time because we think that there's probably going to be just a few remaining items as we close out the project, but I don't think it should hopefully be in this amount, so we're getting close to wrapping it up. And we're very close to issuing substantial completion. But as Chris said, a lot of these are site things. We redid the paving in front of the treatment plant because we're not going to have any other additional heavy equipment in there. Anything in the future expansions will be out in the back. And we did some additional paving up on Permarco and stuff like that, and with the bypass piping and stuff with the mechanicals.
And really for a project of this magnitude, having this only be the second change order for the years that we've been listening to Jerry give us updates is kind of amazing. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but it seems like that's pretty good. So
It's on, I think it was at 0.2 or something like that. He had to raise it 0.1% the last time, so they've done a pretty outstanding job.
anybody have any questions, concerns, comments?
Also include the sidewalk on the street in front of the
Yes, it does.
And that's the pedestrian situation, try to move it away for the safety and keep it away from potential heavy equipment. All right, if nobody has any other questions, I move that we pass resolution 2026-004R, authorizing change order number 6 with IHC Construction Companies LLC for the Phase 2A water treatment rehab project.
Second.
Motion by myself, a second by Barron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. And then we move on to item 7.4, which is resolution 2026-007R, authorizing execution of redevelopment agreement with River Street Hospitality LLC for 15 East Wilson Street in Batavia. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So back in December, Chad Gravenitis, owner of The Goat, came to committee of the whole meeting and shared with us his plans to open a third restaurant. He owns The Goat in Batavia and also Art House in Aurora. And that third restaurant would be at the former Thorabella's location at 15 East Wilson Street. This plan for a new restaurant would require a complete and costly redesign of the interior of the building, which includes a replacement of the existing staircase. And as such, the project would not be possible without some level of assistance from the city. The total project expenses are expected to exceed $400,000. Of that, approximately $160,000 is for demolition and site preparation, structural, framing, and mechanical, electric, and plumbing. The business owner's personal investment in this project is $150,000. The redevelopment agreement provides a grant for $150,000 for reimbursement of permanent improvements that are being made to the building. $100,000 of the grant is payable as those costs are incurred, and an additional $50,000 is payable over the next 5 years on the anniversary of the date the restaurant opens for business in $10,000 increments, thus requiring the business to remain open for at least 5 years in order to receive those additional grants monies. This project is consistent with the City of Batavia's strategic plan in several different areas, also consistent with the downtown plan, which was adopted in 2024. Just running through a few of those things, it supports economic development and local business support. It would really be a highlight of our downtown, a very prominent area. It has a lot of synergy with businesses that are adjacent to it, such as the Comedy Vault, the other businesses which exist on North River Street, the boardwalk shops. The City of Batavia expects that this business is going to generate sales tax and liquor tax revenue based on the owner's projections. The city is expecting to receive approximately $24,000 in tax revenue annually. I mentioned creating jobs. That occurs both during construction and then also in their ongoing operations. It enhances the vibrancy and the diversity of our community, adding a type of restaurant that currently does not exist in our downtown. It's expecting to be upscale dining and create greater foot traffic in our downtown, which is one of the things that our other small businesses in our downtown, if there's one thing they say that they would like to see more of, it's more foot traffic in our downtown. We think that this project will be a catalyst, encouraging further private development in the area, and that it also supports the efforts that we have been making toward community identity and placemaking. That is very much the direction that we would like to see our downtown travel. So with that, staff supports providing this incentive to Chad Gravenitis for his restaurant at 15 East Wilson Street.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Alderman White?
Laura, maybe I missed it. The business owner is taking on a lot of risk here. The city is taking on risk. I don't see anything mentioned about the property owner. It seems as though they're not taking on any risk. They have only things to gain by this business owner coming in and spending a lot of money. That was one of the things I mentioned in the December meeting. Has there been any further discussions that property owner is going to be involved in this?
There has not been any further discussion with the property owner, but I would say that their risk is that right now they've got a vacant building for which they're responsible for all of the overhead costs. This is making it more certain that this restaurant business is going to be successful. And as we know in today's environment, restaurant business, bar business is very difficult. And for somebody to be making the investments that this business owner is, I understand what you're saying. The building owner themselves have made the investment in purchasing the property. So I know that doesn't fully answer your concerns, but if there's something specific that you would like us to negotiate with that property owner.
Definitely not familiar in the restaurant negotiation world, but, want to make sure if the city is coming to the table, the owner is coming to the table, that the property owner is also involved in those discussions.
And I'm not sure in the the agreement between the business owner and the property owner, there's a deficit here, right? So the investment is $400,000 plus. Between the city's investment and the business owner's investment is only $300,000.
That's what I was going to bring up, was that kind of the numbers, to me, that's what made sense to get that to 400,000 would be the property owner.
Yeah, and to speak directly to that, and then my own comment here, some of the risk I think maybe the property owner is taking on is that, the city and the tenant come in and really mess up their building, right? To the tune of $150,000 that won't be available to fix it later. So I do think there's sort of a risk to their asset there. I'm in support of this. I think this really speaks directly to a lot of our goals and initiatives, as is well outlined in the memo here. And in particular, in that area on the River Street area, we've been dealing with quite a few buildings there that are in particularly bad shape, and it's sort of, from my opinion, come to the point where we need to start putting a little skin in the game as well. And I think this is a good way for us to put skin in the game, get some of those buildings up to where we'd like them to be, while also mitigating our risk. I think this is an appropriate approach to putting public money out, but also making sure that there's a mechanism to kind of maybe get a little bit of that back. Hopefully, he far exceeds his $24,000 a year in sales. Hopefully, it's just a gangbusters business here, and we more than recoup our money before the payback period's even here. But even if he doesn't, at $24,000 a year plus the payback schemes, it sounds like we're not putting ourselves way out over our skis. So it feels like it hits all our initiatives here. And hopefully maybe this can become a model of good land ownership, good tenancy, and good governance in an area that we want to see thrive and grow. So I'm excited by this project.
I think Chad has, from the outside looking in, proven himself to be a really smart business owner. I've been to the Goat and the Art House, and they seem to be very fine establishments. So I feel like we're putting our trust in a good place with this one, in our investment. And that is a high-profile location in our downtown. And even later in tonight's meeting, we're talking about the South River Street corridor, and this is what's visible when you're coming from the South River Street. So as a city, we're doing a lot of investment in our downtown, and I think this makes sense just as part of the larger focus of what we're doing.
Fehrenbach?
Yeah, for those who are not aware, the modifications we're making to the building do address existing shortcomings with the building. They are looking at this, they're adjusting the staircase, which I'm going to be honest, my daughter fell down it, broke 2 of her fingers. So I know it's not good. So I'm glad we're fixing that. And also part of the configuration as well. So, and those improvements will stay with the building. So even if for whatever reason this is not successful, we're just setting ourselves up for success for the next business that will come through. Understanding we've had 4 restaurants there in the past. To be fair, we did have a regional success there with Gaetano's. For whatever reason, due to personal reasons with the owners, it had to close. Hoping to repeat that with this new business, with a business owner who has proven successful just a block down. So.
Yeah, I'll just add that, over the time I've been on city council, we have spent a lot of money in different places downtown. And it seems like the past, 6 or 7 years, we really haven't had the facade grants or, people coming in asking, for help to put money into a building to make it last. And I really feel good when it's money that we put into the building itself that'll stay there. It's not just paint and signs and, everything else that go along with a business, but actually the brick and mortar and, the structure inside the building that I think will stay there. So I think it's a good use of money. Other comments? I'll make the motion that we recommend to council, Resolution 2026-007R, authorizing execution of a redevelopment agreement with River Street Hospitality LLC for 15 East Wilson Street, Batavia.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Lancy. Roll call, please.
Baraza, Lancy,
Aye.
Beck, Malay, Malone,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Solfa,
Aye.
Barron, Lehman, Lohman, Pieper, Fehrenbach, Anderson, and White. Okay, that is 11.
Alderman Wolf just wanted to make the movie reference to 007.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I said that. I'll show you my phone later. So with the change in the agenda, we have moved to 7.5, which was actually 7.2, which would be ordinance 2026-001, adoption of South River Street Corridor Plan as an element of the city's comprehensive plan. And Alderman Beck is not here yet, so I will let Drew start us off.
Okay. Yes, so yeah, tonight's, we do have the ordinance to adopt the South River Street Plan. We did have a public hearing on November 19th, along with an open house to basically solicit feedback and comments ahead of the public hearing and answer questions that residents and business owners might have had. The Plan Commission did conduct the public hearing on the 19th of November, and there was a number of residents and businesses that did speak at the hearing. 11 members of the public total did address the Plan Commission. 6 of those represented businesses in the southern or the South Gateway area, which is basically Oswald, Bond, that area. One business owner on River Street was also represented. One broker was present at the meeting that represents property in the corridor. And then 3 individuals that identify themselves as residents. And then I did note in the report also 2 of the business owners were also identified as residents of the community. The main items that came up through the public hearing were several comments addressing the sub-area, the Southern Gateway sub-area. Most of those comments were looking to preserve a lot of the industrial character or the existing character of the businesses and properties within the Gateway area. There was a number of concerns that were raised through several of the comments. Basically, several people wanted to make sure that or they felt that some of the plan, at least within the first alternative for that area, looked like it would call for the demolition of at least one building. They wanted assurances that that their buildings or the existing buildings on Oswald would be preserved, and clearly illustrated that within the plan. There was also several comments that felt that the proposed, there's at least within that version of the document, 3 total alternatives for that area or different options of development, and they felt that that basically 2 of those scenarios were much less workable, either requiring a lot more improvement in terms of utilities and infrastructure, participation of ownership of those properties, and just general feasibility of those particular plans. So they did feel that the first scenario would be or should be identified as their as the city's preferred scenario for that property. Most of the speakers, including residents, did feel that keeping and maintaining the Southern Gateway area for office and light industrial, similar to what's out there presently, was the preferred approach for that area. There were other comments that were raised during the hearing. Several people felt that they wanted to make sure that there was not an increased tax burden. There's discussion of SSAs and other mechanisms for funding of projects. So there were some questions related to that. We did note during the presentation or the hearings that the SSAs are in particular, our participatory process of public hearing that requires the consent of those that would be part of that SSA. There were other questions about traffic impact, particularly one speaker that was addressing the potential for increased traffic going into downtown was their main concern. They felt potentially that the plan might be increasing capacity into downtown, though the plan really shows a center turn lane going down River Street, so it's less additional lanes. It's a third lane, but it's the really for traffic management and not increasing or adding capacity of cars flowing into the downtown. Again, and there was also, so with all these different points, the Plan Commission did close the public hearing. They did feel that there were some changes that should be made to the document before it came to the City Council for the review. Within that motion, there was a request to add more language about parkland or park space. There was concern that, especially with the Batavia Park District removing some of the playground facilities on South River, that there was less opportunity, especially if the area does have a change in character towards residential. So they want to make sure that that was addressed. The commission also did agree with many of the speakers at that hearing that felt that the development scenario A for the South River Gateway area was the preferred scenario. So they did request some retooling of that section, also to try and more clearly identify that that plan was not looking to upend or impact any of the existing buildings and businesses. And then the other change was requesting that essentially the language about the River Street and the third, the center turn lane, that it be carried through into the downtown. Tricia Parks is here from Housing Levine tonight. She does have a presentation that she'll go through that has a conversation, explains the process that we went through to get to tonight's plan this evening, as well as a number of the changes beyond what was outlined in the main memo in terms of other changes that were addressed to address comments that were either received at the public hearing or at the open house. So I will leave it to Tricia.
Let it reflect that Alderman Peck showed up.
All right, thank you, Drew. Okay, let me pull up the presentation. Oh, my fonts. That's okay. You want me to press OK here? Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me back. So our agenda for tonight, I'm just going to give a quick project overview, run through the public outreach that was conducted throughout the process, the plan structure, revisions, and then end on next steps. So what is the corridor plan? So it is, you guys should be familiar with it by now. We're very close to the end of the process, but just a little refresher. So this is going to be your roadmap for the South River Street corridor. It's identifying your desires and aspirations for the corridor and helping direct growth and development. It is also going to provide you, or does provide you, strategies for implementing the plan recommendations. We have gone through 7 of the 8 steps. We are very close to the end, with a final adoption being the final step of 7. Following that is step 8, which will be taking a look at the zoning and how that may be updated to help facilitate recommendations found within this plan. of public outreach. There has been considerable public outreach related to this project, both online and in person. So we've had a project website for the duration where we post updates, draft documents, advertise any in-person outreach events. We also have an online survey and Map Social, which is pictured here, where people could, draw on the map, identifying issues, opportunities, and some site assets. There are a number of in-person outreach. So we have them all listed here. The number in parentheses is about the number of people that attended. So we had workshops, small focus groups. We had 2 open houses, different points within the process, 2 pop-up events, and then we also just previously had our public hearing. So we had 3 workshops. So we had 3 separate meetings. We met with the department heads. We had a business-focused workshop, and then we also met with elected and appointed officials. These were all conducted in a similar fashion, asking questions related to what are the issues and concerns, key projects and actions you would like to see come out of this plan, and then strengths and assets that should be preserved. So there are about 41 total participants across these 3 workshops. We also met with smaller groups. So we had 8 interviews with 15 participants. We met with business owners, property owners, as well as the park district. We had an open house working session. So this was about midway through the process before we started any of the plan recommendations. This was our public's opportunity to start providing their input. So we had a number of different stations throughout this room asking, what they want to see related to streetscape and character, the land use priorities, and also an overall vision for the corridor. And then we had 2 pop-up events over the summer, one at the farmers market and one within the corridor at Funway. So this was just to educate the public and present some draft content. And then we also, provided feedback, got feedback from the people that stopped by, answered questions, and just had general discussions about the plan. Most recently, we had the open house and the public hearing, both held on November 19th. So we had about 25 people attend the open house, and as Jude mentioned, we had 11 speakers at the public hearing. But there also were some people in the audience as well, additionally to the ones that spoke. And so that was an opportunity for people to, review the plan, ask questions, and then directly address the Plan Commission. And staff did a lot of work trying to, get the businesses and stakeholders involved. They sent out mailers, they did hand deliveries, they sent out emails, and they also did phone outreach. So overall, we had about 240 online points of engagement and 280 in person for a total of about 520 total points of engagement across the process. Any questions on outreach before I move on to plan structure? Okay. All right, so plan structure, I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. There's 5 chapters within the plan. The first is about the plan, so that's just giving kind of the overview of what we're doing here. So what the purpose is, how we went through the process, our understanding of relevant past plans. It also provided your summary of community engagement. Vision and goals is short and sweet, so it just has the vision statement and it identifies the 5 goals for the project. So that would be encourage diverse land use, enhance aesthetics and foster identity, improve connectivity, leverage the Fox River, and balance growth in community and industrial needs. Land use. So this is one of the more important chapters within the plan. So this is going to start with a setup of key considerations, things that we looked at and were thinking about when developing this chapter. It goes through 4 functional subareas. You can see them on the map to the left. So we break the corridor down into functional subareas to provide a bit more specific recommendations to unique areas within the corridor. We provide improvement strategies, and we also have the impact sites. So when we were discussing, when Drew was kind of giving you the overview of the sub area, that would be one of these impact sites. Streetscape and mobility. Again, we start this chapter off with key considerations, things that we were looking at and thinking about that should be addressed within this chapter. We go through streetscape elements and different tiers of streetscape improvements along the corridor, because it wouldn't all be the same throughout the entire mile stretch. We go through mobility, like sidewalk connections, trails, crossings, and then beautification like signage and sorry, what are my words? Oh, signage, and that's where we talk about parks as well. Sorry. And then implementation. So this is our final chapter. This is where you're going to find information on how to, of course, implement the plan. Self-explanatory by the title. But this is going to give you a number of different things. So this is going to provide you with economic development tools, how the city can use some redevelopment strategies, different funding sources, and then a matrix that identifies different actions, their priorities, and who would be your partner in implementing those actions. All right, any questions on the structure before I move on to the revisions? Okay, so I'm just going, there are, as you're going through the draft process, there are some small revisions like spelling and a little bit of formatting. I'm not gonna go through all of those, but I'm just going to highlight some of the main things, specifically a little bit more information on the ones that Drew highlighted and how those were addressed. Can I move this off to the corner? Is that possible? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, so on the left is going to be the October draft. So this is the one that was presented at the open house and also the public hearing. And then the December draft should be the one that you all received in your packet. This was not one that was identified by the public, but just one that needed to be addressed. So it had the open house and the public hearing. So the revision here was just to make sure that that was highlighted within the community engagement page. Here we are talking about the industrial. This is the page that is for the land use descriptions. So this is an update to the light industrial land use description. So the comment from the public was concerned about how nuisances would be addressed. So we have some language here that is identified within Chapter 4 of the Municipal Code. We also provide we provide examples on what we mean by light industrial. So we include that this is manufacturing and assembly, research and development, and warehousing. So this is the West-South River Street functional subarea. So the paragraph I have highlighted here is the part that updated. So there was just a small text ad that includes active recreational use and businesses that can take advantage of the riverfront should be highly encouraged. So that was added to this page based on public outreach, wanting to see more of that type of business within this functional subarea. All right. It's not green. Oh, there it goes. This is the Southern Gateway. So this was a large part of the discussion throughout the public hearing and the open house. So this is how the page looked in October. I have a couple of edits on here, so there'll be a couple more slides after this, but one at a time, I'll take the edits. So the first one here I'm going to highlight is that there was added text to this paragraph. You can see it's a bit longer than it was in October. So the point of the revisions here, I won't read them verbatim, but the gist of it is that the city does support the area's continued use as a light industrial hub, as shown in the preferred concept. It also is going to clarify, it does clarify that alternative concept A and B are both exploring potentials on how the area could develop under a larger redevelopment approach. And then moving on to the preferred concept. So of course you can see that it is now the preferred concept rather than concept A, B, and C. The graphic above was updated to include the footprints of the existing buildings, highlighting that those are to remain. And then previously, one of the conceptual roads did go through one of the buildings, so that was adjusted to make sure we avoid all existing structures. And then the text below, again, does highlight that this is the preferred concept and that the existing businesses should continue to remain, and it would be developed as a light industrial hub. And then the final change that I'll highlight here is that, so we revised the text to give a little bit more detail on the development characteristics for each concept. But the main and the more important edit here is to emphasize that the concepts are to show a comprehensive redevelopment of the Southern Gateway, if you're starting from scratch. So again, they are just exploratory concepts and again, alternatives to the preferred. All right, and then for moving to streetscape chapter. So this is in relation to how, this was a comment from the public on how the streetscape within the corridor would tie into downtown and how those two things would meet. So the added text here, so one, the graphic change, so the tiers showing beyond the border of the Southern Gateway, and then text was added that it says, so the downtown gateway should serve as a transition between downtown Batavia and Southern River Street corridor with Tier 1 streetscape extending to Wilson Street to the southern end of Clark Island Recreation Area's property on the west side of South River. So that's just clarifying that it should extend to Wilson. This is an added section on public and private parks. So this text is saying that the city does encourage the development of additional parks, both private, as part of new development, or public that would be owned and maintained by the Batavia Park District. This is special service area text within the implementation chapter. As Drew mentioned, there was some concern about this text and how it read. The text here just says, an SSA is considered a self-imposed tax because it is created only after property owners and registered voters within the proposed boundary are given formal notice and an opportunity to object. So the purpose for that was just to clarify that it is self-imposed, because the feedback we received was that it read as if the community or the people within the service area didn't really have any input or choice. It was something that just would happen to them, which is not the case. All right, and then I believe this is the final edit. So we have city redevelopment strategies, again, within the implementation chapter. So there was a revised line within this section. I'll read the existing, which read, by using strategies such as targeted site acquisition and land use amortization, the city can help guide the type, pace, and character of new development. So that was the existing sentence. This was revised based on the comment that, there was a bit of concern that these tools were things that the city was going to use, but we wanted to clarify that these are tools that the city could use. So the revised text is a range of existing strategies, such as targeted site acquisition and land amortization, are available to the city to use if it chooses. These optional tools can help guide the type, pace, and character of new development. So that was the revised text. So those are the overall changes that were made based on the comments that we have received from the public hearing and the open house in November. Any questions on those? Okay. So following the approval of tonight, we would be moving to January 20th for City Council for adoption. And then, as I mentioned, step 8, that is the South River Street District development. So we will be taking a look at the zoning, providing recommendations on how that could be revised to align with the recommendations within this plan. And that is my presentation.
Does anybody have any questions overall on this? I know I've got a couple notes, but Abby, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Thank you for waiting for me, first of all. Could you walk through that, the land use, I'm looking for my note, I'm so sorry. Amortization is, what does that look like in practice? What would that look like for some of our existing buildings?
Let me go to the page. Oh, I thought I had it on here. Okay. So I'm not sure if that's what you want. That's a question for me, or if Drew, you want to answer specific to how the city handles this?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so within the strategy section, there is comment about land use amortization or amortization generally. Just to give a brief explanation of that, but that's essentially some municipalities use it for certain uses, or like, so for example, signs are something that commonly are used with amortization, but basically that's something where if a change was made to a zoning code, you could specify that a specific use or signs over a certain size or whatever was looking to be kind of phased out over time. You would basically, within the change of the process of changing that within the zoning code, you would include a requirement that over a specified period of time, whether that be 7 years, 14 years, 30 years, that use or that sign has a certain lifespan, and that by that end of that time frame, it would have to cease or be changed based on what's being asked for. I think within the context of South River and the corridor, we do have, part of that area was zoned general industrial at one point, and we have some heavier uses that might not, even with light industrial, may not be as compatible. There might be uses that have components or elements like, if for example, there was a desire to not have, certain type of fencing or certain type of storage activities, those could be things that could be amortized if the code was specified to change things. Usually with amortization, you probably do want to be very specific. It's not going to be just a whole set of uses. You probably do want to be specific, but the code or the draft language again has that listed as a tool, but it doesn't necessarily say it has to be used or should be used. And if it was removed, the city, it still doesn't preclude the city from enacting that or going down that route if that was the preference of the city council.
The other option is to say we change the zoning on a piece of property, that we would then enforce that when the property changed hands instead of this kind of phase out would be making the current property owner eventually change the use?
So, and there's different ways it could be structured, but generally, there is non-conforming rights whenever you make a change to a zoning code where, somebody, so long as it was legally established or lawfully established, you can continue to use that use so long as they continue to have it set up that way. Usually, like within our code, for example, I believe after a year-long period of ceasing the activity, that's when a grandfathered use usually has to cease. But you could transfer a business from, if business A is a non-conforming use and they sell it to, owner A sells it to owner B, they would be able to continue it if they're a similar use or related use. So that's where amortization comes in, where you could say, upon transfer during that period or ceasing operation, there's a couple of different ways that you could specify that, but basically, if you use amortization, there would be a cutoff or kind of a phase out of that, and that's different than the other non-conforming rights that somebody would normally have.
Just to re-clarify that, so if a business is in operation and maintains continuity, even past that amortization schedule, they would still be allowed to operate until they then closed or moved or changed in a significant way.
I think you're saying, so if it was a situation where a use was being amortized?
Yeah, we've put an amortization on it, but the business is still operating at the end of that period.
So in that situation, at the end of that, that's where the activity would need to cease, essentially.
Okay.
So if you said, by 2040, use A has to end within the district, they could, if they wrapped up before then, it would
it wouldn't be
meet
allowed
that.
to continue.
But if they continued at the end, then that would be kind of more of a legal question at that point.
There's also many ways to do this. I mean, as Drew is alluding to, you can do it a time period. You could say change in ownership. You would have to write it into your zoning code. That's kind of one of the next steps that we're doing is a new zoning district or now, overlay or whatever we're going to call it by the time we're done with it. And so you can address those things then, or you can not address them if you don't want to even consider that. That's an option for the city council to make. So you could say, 30 years, 20 years, whatever you want to do, and it can be anything of those different things that Drew had talked about. So
I have more, but I can wait. People can take turns. Okay, one more question, and then you can come back to me. The business district that we could set up for this area to help fund kind of it's at hotel tax, 1% sales tax, retailer's occupation tax. Given the current uses of that area, is there a sufficient amount of tax generated that would be a source for us to make these improvements? Do we think?
Based on, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so the one difference with a business development district, from kind of the current status quo of taxes, you could charge for services. You could create a service tax within that area. So that probably would be an opportunity, especially within this area, where that might have more benefit. I forget if Michio had anything specific in that aspect of it. Others just say that it would probably have some generation. But.
Yeah, he didn't. He just said generally that it was a possibility.
Yeah. So, we have less retail down there, but if things change, that it would also be another opportunity too. So.
Yeah, the report. Sorry. So as part of the process, we have each group on board on our team. He looked at the financials. He looked at the eligibility of TIF, business district, and SSA. His report just kind of generally said that they would be eligible for a business district. It didn't go much into detail on what that would produce.
Yeah, that would probably be, if we adopt the plan and we do, as one of the recommendations, do take action on that, that would probably be part of a more, it's similar to a TIF process where you define the area and then you do some of the further analysis of how much money you could generate and those sort of things to pay for whatever improvements that it might be set up for.
else? I have one question that kind of came to me after with the third lane all the way to Wilson Street. Have we involved IDOT at all yet on any of the questions for any of the work that we're thinking about that could possibly happen along there, since they'll have jurisdiction over it?
So part of this, going through this planning process would be to basically have our wish list for IDOT to say, these are the things that we would like to see within terms of improvements. I think generally what Househill has done is to make sure that generally knowing what IDOT would be looking for would be compatible with, but I don't think there's been any direct contact at this point, just knowing we're early on in things.
I'm just thinking about the crossings and the third lane and everything, that's something I think has to be explored before we say this is really what we want to have happen on that street, so that we have a better idea of what they'll say yes to.
But yeah, as Drew said, so this is more of the like what you guys want to see. This is your aspiration. So the part of the process was just looking at your right-of-way lists. Is it possible? And then we had some discussions with the Public Works Department on whether or not that they are kind of in agreement on whether or not that it would be feasible. So then coming out of this plan, next steps would be to make your, the ideal situation on a South River Street known to IDOT.
Any more, Abby?
You answered it a little bit in terms of what happens if this passes tonight. In terms of the next steps, like how soon are we talking about those the high priority list items, the rezoning and stuff like that? How long of a plan does this look like?
So following tonight, we have adoption next week if it, all goes well. And then our process, we have started looking at the zoning and have started drafting language based on some of the solid recommendations we have within the plan already. There were some discussions based off the previous draft and the changes from December to see if there's anything that needed to be changed. But really, this is kind of getting this adopted and making sure that we are all on the same page with this plan is the focus. And then once that's done, a shift to zoning. Because we have some content drafted, I don't anticipate it being a long process before staff really can provide their comments back to us. And then that kind of just needs to go through its own adoption process, which depending on how much discussion there is, could be short, could be long. And then in the implementation chapter, there is priority level actions. So whether or not you can there's things in there that you can start doing tomorrow, and then obviously some things that just will take longer over the longer course of the project.
Yeah, as we move to the implementation of this, assuming it passes tonight, I do have a question just regarding our approach. I'm assuming this is going to eventually result in some RFPs, right? Would that be a fair assumption?
I think it would result in, if that's the way you want to go, it doesn't necessarily identify any specific new projects or plans to come out of this. It does recommend, your impact or the impact sites if you want to put an RFP out for a wholesale redevelopment of those areas or start to advertise those. But that's optional. It doesn't identify any specific projects though.
I think one of the things that we would think about, obviously, after we do the zoning, because the zoning is pretty key here, is the financing mechanisms that are called out for. Because before we can do anything really substantive, whether that's facade improvement grants, improvements to streetscape, et cetera, we got to find a way to fund it. So I think we would look at those three different funding mechanisms and talk to the council about that and see the direction on which way you would like to go on any one, all, none, whatever it is that you desire. So those would be things that would be next, because once we create a funding source, then obviously we'd have a way to do stuff, and that's how we would move forward, I think, next.
other comments? Okay. The public wants to make any comments tonight about this? If you'd like to, come on up. All we need is your name and come up and adjust the mic, and we're welcome to hear from you. Go ahead. Yeah, you have to come up and use the microphone. This is being broadcast and recorded.
Everyone, my name is Kamal. We are in Fox Valley Business Park area. I own a leather bag business. I have a warehouse there and also a land in that area. Mr. Timothy actually made me aware of what was going on, and I just recently came to know that city is making new plans for the developments and improving our area. I do see preferred plan is in our favor, but the other two plans are not so much in our favor and not so much in our growth. I moved to Batavia 7-8 years back. My kids go to school here, and I have very little kids. So when I acquired this building, I fought for this building. I can say it's very special because it's where my business grew. It's where I grew. It's where my family grew. And when I see that my building is getting affected, it scared me a little too at the same time. So I want to be part of the Batavia growth, not become the collateral damage in the growth as well. So yeah, I see that the preferred plan is something that is okay for all of us in our neighborhood. I mean, I can talk for myself, but I see for everybody as well. But the other two plans are literally just wiping us off. So that's something I have an objection for that. So yeah.
Kamal, could you give your first and last name?
So my first name is Kamal and last name is Chaudhry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so that's something I have to say for it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Wilson. I'm a 30-year resident of Batavia and a business owner over on Ward Street. And I just want to say that the preferred plan is what we'd like to support. And glad to see that you pivot away from the previous plans to eliminate. We'd like to keep the park the same. So there's over 100 people working in that area. So it's important to 100 people and 100 families. Thank you.
No, just give your name.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sanza Kazadi. I'm a resident of Batavia, and I've been here for about 10 years. I moved here from LA on New Year's Day. It was great. So I run a company. It's a VC-backed startup in Oswald, 245 Oswald. I also live nearby within walking distance. And I chose that place because for a couple of reasons. My company is a renewable energy company, and Batavia has a long history in renewable energy. It's a city of energy. So there are synergies with what we're trying to do and also an impact we're trying to have and the place that we are. It's also where my kids go to school, where I chose to raise my family. And so, we have a unique technology which we believe will change the world. We have lots of opportunities to move around the places. We've just had a really big breakthrough in the last couple of weeks. And hopefully we'll have a very big fundraise this year, which will allow us to purchase a large chunk of that office area and then develop it, which hopefully we'll have do in partnership with all of you. Obviously, for us, Plan A, the preferred plan, not Plan A, the preferred plan is the plan we would like to see. And we would love to hear from you today that, in fact, that's the plan that you'll go with. And of course, if you do, then you'll have our full backing and support. So, thank you.
Else?
My name's Keith Schauer. I'm a resident of Batavia, and I own CA Services Corporation, and that is the far south side of the park in the Fox Valley Industrial Park. And I'll just tell you, I was really glad to see the buildings are back on the plan. That was very encouraging. I'll tell you, it's a little heartbreaking when you look at a plan and your buildings have been removed, but they're back. And I was glad to hear tonight you listened and you took what Plan A was to make it the preferred plan. We appreciate that. But a little bit about CA Services. I guess one of the concerns I had listening to all the analysis that took place, no one ever came to visit our business. No one ever came to see our building. No one ever came to talk to the people that work there, which was kind of heartbreaking to me because there's a lot of good businesses there with a lot of people. So I get a little choked up. CA Services has 35 employees, supporting 35 families, and most of them live in Batavia. Their kids go to school in Batavia, and we're committed to Batavia. And we're on that side where it was eliminated, and it was going to be residential, and the building was going to be torn down, so we had some concerns. So we are really hoping you will push for the preferred plan and remove A and B, because it's important to us. And just a little bit about CA, we're a leading engineering services company. We have a very unique engineering process. We don't manufacture anything. We have 35 employees. Most of those are mechanical engineers, and we're the largest in the world at what we do. Some of our clients are Apple. I'm proud to tell you that the tooling manager of Apple has visited the little town of Batavia a number of times. We work with Tesla, SpaceX, GM. Directors of GM have come out. It's a very fast-moving, intense computer-aided engineering technology. That's what we do. So anyway, we also have a technology center there. We support the community. We've had classes from Batavia schools come out and get educated on the high levels of technology. We've hired intern students from the high school for the summers and taught them about this technology. So my point is we're committed to Batavia, and we hope that you'll vote the right way for us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tim Ward. I have a long history with the Fox Valley Business Park. My father is the guy that got it started with a couple of his friends, his partners. And what do you know, I was about 4 years out of architecture school at Illinois when he started building buildings there. So I'm the architect of record for all of the 6 existing buildings there. My dad passed away in 1995, and at that point, the general contracting in the park stopped. I'm not a general contractor. But I just wanted you to know that history. I have talked with all of as many of the owners in the park that I could. We have an association, an owners association. I'm the president of the owners association. And so when I speak to you tonight, I'm speaking to you as the president of the association, in the voice of the association. You have, there's 15 property owners in the park. I think we have about 11 here in the room represented. One of the buildings is the Oswald building is a 6 condo unit, and we have the 2 of the members who are on the board for that condo here with us tonight. So first, I'd like to talk about a couple of clarifications from the study, and then I'd like to talk about some of the major concerns that all of the property owners have mentioned to me. And then lastly, I'd like to make some comments and recommendations from the association. So questions about the report. Just a couple of things, nothing really earth-shattering here, but page 12 says, modern aging infrastructure. Stakeholders saw outdated stormwater systems. Stormwater systems are essential to support growth. I don't know how many of you are aware of the stormwater management system that supports the Fox Valley Business Park, but it is probably the most sophisticated and precise stormwater management system in the city of Batavia, and probably anywhere for 10 or 15 miles around. It was built in 2011 and 2012. There's 9 interlocking detention ponds. So when it rains, the water goes into the detention pond, it fills up, and then it very slowly lowers over time into the next detention pond, and the next detention pond, and the next detention pond. So by the time it actually goes to Batavia Creek and gets into the Fox River, it is clean. There's no sediment. I've actually gotten a glass and walked to the very end, taken a glass, hold it up to the sun, and there is nothing in there except water. It really works. One of the things I'm concerned about, of course, is in option, this the second and third option, that's going to have to be redone. Page 43, South Gateway Plan says, additional recommendations support property maintenance, remodeling, and update of the existing buildings. Well, there's 6 existing buildings. They're all, designed by me. They're all brick and block. The walls are about 11.5 inches thick. They're well insulated. They all have good roofs, and in the last 2 years, 3 of the buildings have had new roofs put on. Mr. Shower just installed all new HVAC systems on the roof of his building. Occasionally the parking lots get ripped up and put back down. Every 2 years there's seal coating on almost all the buildings. Maybe it's a little bit slower on some, but usually if you walk around there, you'll see that the parking lots are in pretty good shape. There's tuck pointing that has to be done, and we do that religiously, and we usually cooperate between the owners on that activity. So if you ask me, when these things were built in the early 90s, they look about the same today as they did then. They're very well maintained. So I guess I just don't understand what property maintenance, remodeling, and updating is required. Then thirdly, the encourage redevelopment and underperforming, vacant, and incompatible uses. I'm here to tell you that in the last 8 years, there hasn't been one building in the industrial park, one space in the industrial park that's been empty for 90 days. There are no vacancies. It is completely full, either of tenants or owners, mostly owners. But an incompatible use, what's the incompatible use? I don't know what that is. So I would appreciate it if somebody could answer those questions for me. I'm probably a little bit too close to my heart, but that's what I see as some questions that I think are in the report that are not explained. Concerns. There's 3 major concerns. The staff talked about a few of them a little while ago. The special service area. So SSA 56 was set in place a couple of years ago, and I, for one, am very, very happy that it's there. How shall I say this? Not all of the owners wanted to join the association and pay dues, and I was having real trouble getting everybody in line and, join the association, please. It's important. We got to work together. And having an SSA that says that it is a single-purpose SSA to be used only if the association doesn't maintain the detention ponds and the other common areas in the park. So that SSA is only to be used if the park is not maintaining properly to the city satisfaction those common areas. Then the SSA can be used, but it's only for that purpose. It's a one-purpose thing, and the language putting the SSA in place states that this SSA will be dormant unless that occurs. What I read in the report, what the owners are concerned about is that the SSA could be used for many functions, many common area uses, and we would object to that because that's not the intent. That wasn't the intent of the SSA. We understand what the SSA is all about, but that's other than backup for maintaining the park. There should be no use for that SSA. Number 2, land use amortization. Well, that freaks everybody out. I mean, I think, if I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example, but if if someone wanted to, for very good reasons, wanted to change your property from your home into a light industrial park, I can't imagine that would happen. But you were amortized so that after some period of time, whatever your use is today could not be done in the future. You would not be supportive of that. And the owners of the Fox Valley Business Park property have made that pretty clear to me. A third thing is condemnation and eminent domain. I fully understand that the city of Batavia has not used those type of tools for a very long period of time. If in my memory, I can't remember it. So it's been a long time. However, it remains a concern. I believe there have been times when the city of Batavia has actually threatened to use condemnation and eminent domain. That's a very concern to the Owners Association and all the members, and we bring it up to your attention. That's all. Finally, I want to talk about the Owner Association's remarks and their recommendations. I think you've heard them to this point by some of the other owners. Everyone is in favor of the first option, and we will back you as much as we possibly can. We'll be your partner. We will work with you night and day to make that one happen. The second two, the two other alternatives basically call for removal of the roads, the infrastructure, all of it, including the detention ponds and the buildings. So, what do you think? No one is in favor of that. And so we would ask that you have one option in this plan, not three. And that option would be the first option. We'd also believe that, the members believe that if this is to be a successful development, it has to have the full support of the city. And we can't do it without you. And the idea of having a TIF is great. Yay, let's do that. And I think also a number of the property owners have talked about some of the restrictions, setbacks, things like that, that could be helpful to help to incentivize developers to develop some of this property. The study talks about some of the lots being challenged because of the width. Over my tenure, over the last 30 years, those setbacks have changed. They've gotten bigger, and that means there's less land for parking and buildings, and that makes it very difficult. So if we could talk about perhaps some release from those, or at least softening of some of those requirements, that would probably help development as well. And that's it. We really do want to work with you. Everyone has a long history with Batavia, and we want to continue to do so. Thank you.
Anybody else? Fehrenbach? Oh, Dustin, go ahead.
I was just going to comment.
Microphone.
Sorry. I was just going to comment. My reading of this plan regarding the other two options on the proposal, how I often see development undergone in these circumstances, I think those plans are in place for like a potential future where you all choose to sell your land to a larger developer and they want to develop it into some larger property. This is what we would like them to do if that went through. But obviously, for that to occur, you all would have to sell. You would be in the driver's seat there. So that, to my mind, is why we have those options there in case of that situation. But I would argue that all of us would like to see existing businesses be maintained because you guys have a proven track record of success in the area, and you are very much a part of our town. Anyway, that's my reading of the situation, to maybe try to dispel some concerns. That's more for a much larger possible development that you guys would have already have acquiesced to have it occur. We're not going to go out there and just start tearing out roads or anything like that. There's no desire for that, and would be very unusual for how development usually is undertaken. That's my read on it, at least. So,
And then, just to say it, so I work in manufacturing. I support manufacturers. When we look at City Council and City of Batavia, there's probably a lack of understanding regarding how manufacturing has changed. And it's changed dramatically over the past even 10 years, right? So I think for when a lot of folks think manufacturing at this table, they're thinking, probably 1980s era type manufacturing, not what it is now, right? I'm very familiar with that. That's my everyday. Okay. My expectation would be, if this corridor, would stay manufacturing focused, right? And because the nature of manufacturing in itself has changed so much, right? So I think coming out of this read and to kind of piggy off what Dustin just said, I am not expecting to lose a single business because of this plan at all, right? And even if a business were to come in, I would expect we'd have an easier time getting another manufacturer to come in as opposed to getting a commercial property in, right? And that'd be the preference, right? So we want to continue to support and continue to even potentially expand our manufacturing footprint for a couple of reasons. First off, it helps us on our taxes, our property taxes. It's a great revenue generator by far. Secondly, it brings in jobs. Manufacturing is coming back. I see that every day. I have customers all the time bringing jobs back to the U.S., all the time automating factories and the factory floor, what have you. So we just want to encourage that kind of going forward. But I think what you're seeing in this plan, number one, I think majority of folks at this table assumed they were talking to existing businesses, right? If that's not the case, that's bad on us. And we need to change that. So to remedy that, I'd love to have lunch with some of you, those folks who just spoke. I can't tell you who I work for, but you'd be surprised, right? In the manufacturing space, so I definitely want to get to know you folks. So I'll be sure to reach out after this meeting to make sure it happens. And also, I may be your alderman. I'm in Ward 5, so there you go, even better, right? So you'll see that communication coming out from me. Assuming I can find your email. If I can't, I'll work with Laura to get it. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, when this first was being discussed at the very beginning of the process, I think I even expressed when there was some concerns at the beginning that I was in support of, making sure that the existing businesses weren't affected by this. And based upon everything I've heard from the people who have emailed, and there's been several long emails and people who have spoken tonight, it seems like what is now the preferred plan has allayed the fears and concerns of the business owners. So I think that we're on a good path, and I see no problem with recommending the preferred plan at this point in time.
Just wanted to confirm or clarify that the preferred plan, we're talking about the sub area, the southern gateway, the preferred plan of just that. Did we hear much from the west-south River Street or east-south River Street, those businesses that are along that area?
So we only had really one speaker at the hearing that addressed that area specifically. I think earlier on, and especially as we had the moratorium going on during the planning process, we did hear from several of those owners at that time. I think there's still a general, the speaker at the hearing, and generally what we've heard from people along that portion of the corridor is, concerned that they want to be able to continue their business and their operations. We had some owners within that portion of the corridor also supportive of making changes to that area, feeling that, that would be more appropriate over time. So, we did hear some of that feedback as well. We have tried throughout the whole process, one of the slides Tricia included did kind of talk through, we did try and engage as best as we can. We tried what methods we have easily available, email, or, we don't have emails for businesses. We don't have business registration or, very limited access to getting that type of information. So we've been using traditional mail. We did do, I think for the first open house, went door to door dropping letters or invitations to that. So, we're limited in what we can do, but we've tried to as best to reach out to business owners as well. So,
anybody else? I'll say this is something that I think, since we did this, we all have an interest in trying to do something better within that corridor or try to improve that corridor. And I don't want to displace businesses that are there, that have been there, or that have expanded there, or that have just recently relocated to that area. And especially with the design of the way that business park is in the southeast corner there, I think we need to figure a way to try to expand that and make that more of a central hub for what's happening now and what can happen there. And I think if we, decide that that's how we're going to do that with the preferred plan that's there, then we really have to step up and try to figure out how to really create a partnership with the businesses and the property owners down there so that we can make that happen. I mean, we tried, it just, Rubicon didn't finish. And, that was very frustrating because there was a lot of work done down there for what would have been, kind of a keystone in the center of that property. So now we just have to figure out how to make it happen again. Smaller or big development, it just needs to happen.
A couple of more general questions. One is about that possible housing development on South River Street that is being discussed, and how does that development plus this plan come together since they're kind of overlapping?
I think that actually part of the recommendations here specifically line up with wanting to attract multifamily residential to that area. So I would say they're directly aligned.
And then with like pedestrian plans, crosswalks, sidewalks, all of that, I guess when we implement this plan, then when that development comes in, they will immediately take this plan into account when we do all of that.
The whole purpose of, thanks for asking that question. That's really the whole purpose of developing these plans, is so that when projects come in, we make sure that they're being developed to align with these recommendations. And so, yes, the pedestrian elements, the streetscape elements, all of those things will be looked at and made a recommendation to any development that happens. And Scott has a
Yeah, and as part of the recommendations on that particular project, they are going to be putting a sidewalk on Route 25 as well as a proposed pedestrian crossing to get to the park with protected, I think, RFBs or some kind of protected pedestrian crossing there. So they will be doing some of that stuff and then making some improvements to Route 25 itself. Obviously, they have to go through IDOT, but that is part of the plan as well.
Yeah.
And with the plan being in process, we're trying to include, or we'll be including those, the related commentary within the draft plan, because it probably will still, whether it's adopted or not by then, it's kind of in that flux right now. But we would be including the commentary on the fact that, for the east side of the River Street, it does have residential as a preferred use among several other preferred uses, and then there's other under consideration. We'll be comparing it to its recommendations in terms of height, streetscape. As Scott mentioned, those aspects will be covered within the staff analysis for that particular project. With the IDOT right-of-way, we may not have the full profile at this point because we're still, that's all still being kind of fine-tuned at this point within the plan. But many of those improvements will be called for with that.
And then another question I have, how many other active plans do we have right now as a city?
So within the comprehensive plan, we do have the downtown plan as an area plan. There is a Westtown area plan as well in terms of areas of the community that have specific plans for them. There's other documents that the city has, like strategic plan and things like that. But in terms of land use or community plans, those are, with the adoption of this would be the third plan specific to an area.
And then I really am curious, how are these other plans going where funding is concerned, where participation both by council and staff, and basically we're investing a lot. I mean, this South Corridor plan has now, or for River Street, is what, we're a year and a half into this process. So I just curious, like, we do these plans and then do we find them extremely beneficial, or how can we make them even more beneficial?
Guys, we currently are talking about 2 different developments that are in complete alignment with the plans that were developed in the downtown plan. So for instance, talking with the software company who is looking to locate their business in our downtown, one of the things that was identified as a goal of our downtown plan was to bring more people during the daytime to our downtown and to look for an employer that aligned with that. And so we've got that project. The other thing is to look for mixed-use developments that would bring more market rate housing to our downtown. And in that regard, the city has recently acquired 2 properties on South Batavia Avenue that now the city and 1 local developer own the entire block of South Batavia Avenue, 1st Street, South Water Street, and Main Street. And the plan there is to develop an apartment building, a public parking facility there, as well as numerous commercial spaces surrounding that property. And so I think it has helped to attract developers to bring ideas because they see what's part of our plan for our downtown and they know what kind of projects to bring to us.
Also, as part of the downtown plan, for example, planning is often a long-term process, and there's many steps that have to happen to implement things. And we are working on, in the downtown, besides, obviously the individual projects, the plan itself allows for kind of a roadmap for anybody that's interested in a parcel. So they can say, okay, I want to go where the banks are or something like that. They can look at the plan and say, oh, this is what the city envisions for that area, and then I can see if that matches with what I'd want to do. For physical work that we're doing right now is we are doing work on the downtown mixed-use zoning district right now. We're doing that in-house. We're getting pretty near the end of it, I think. We've got the draft of what we're proposing. We need to have legal review, and then once we do that, we'll share that with you and then set that through the public hearing process. But that will change how the downtown mixed-use area is. It'll have kind of sub-areas for different parts of the downtown. Some areas are going to be open space more. Some are going to be more oriented towards, denser development, those types of things. So, that'll be part of, that whole project that we're working on too. But that's obviously a time-consuming project, but we're getting near the end of that, and that'll be kind of the true framework for what's going to happen downtown.
Yeah. And then just a quick follow-up I ask regarding the RFP that was just released and actually was due to December 22nd for the development on North River Street. Did we get any responses for that RFP?
No, unfortunately not. And I will follow up with the council on a memo on that or an email on that, because I wanted to talk about some of the things, that the implications of that and, where should we go now? Because we have some thoughts on, where we should go on that. And then once you get that, then we can have a discussion if you'd like, further about, the downtown properties that city owns and where we should go.
Yeah, we do have that ask before the holidays regarding just having the day where we kind of review everything on River Street as far as what's worked, what hasn't. And now this RFP's closed up, that's, that's a good discussion point for that, that conversation.
Anything more here before we move on with this? Okay, would someone care to make a motion on ordinance 2026-001? So moved. Second. Motion and second by Malone and Lancy. Roll call, please.
Raza. Lancy.
Aye.
Beck. Aye. Malay.
Aye.
Malone.
Aye.
Solfa.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Barron. Aye. Lehman. Aye. Lohman. Aye. Pieper.
Aye.
Fehrenbach.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
And that'll be 13.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for coming down tonight and talking to us about this. And I look forward to moving forward with this over the next few years. And then I'll be done up here and somebody else will take over for that. All right, thank you. All right, then we will move on to item 7.7, which is a discussion on feasibility study for a grade separated pedestrian and bicycle crossing at Randall Road and Main Street.
Good evening. I'm Chris Bong. I'm a senior civil engineer here at the city. So tonight, the item we're going to be discussing is a feasibility study for grade separated pedestrian and bicycle crossing at Randall and Main Street. So this was budgeted, as you know, the city council budgeted these funds in 2025 to do this study at this location. The reason we did it, it was identified in the city's bike and ped plan as one of the most challenging crossings for pedestrians in the city, pedestrians and cyclists. So the purpose of the study is kind of an early step to understand the constraints and costs and possible options for a crossing at the intersection. So since we had budgeted funds, we hired a civil engineering firm, Strand Associates, who is here with me today. They produced the study. So Tony Standish and Elisa Becker from Strand are going to walk through all those findings. So with that, I will hand it off to them.
You bring up the presentation.
Yeah.
Max, do we need to change the presentation up there or share so that Alice can see it?
Chris, can you just go to the Zoom and share that?
Perfect.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Again, my name is Tony Standish with Strand Associates. So thank you for having us tonight. So we were going to be discussing the Randall Road pedestrian crossing feasibility study. Just by way of purpose, the purpose of the study was to evaluate grade separated pedestrian and bicycle crossing of Randall Road near Main Street. There's obviously high volumes of traffic along Randall Road, and that kind of serves as a barrier limiting connectivity between the east and west sides of Randall Road. There's significant generators in the area with schools, neighborhoods, and commercial properties. And again, this was a concept level study, and we weren't tasked with like looking at different bridge types or anything like that. It was just looking at alignments and seeing what was feasible. So the alternatives, is that right? Yeah, alternatives considered. There were 11 alignments total that were considered, including north, south, and at the Main Street intersection. For all of the alternatives considered, the vertical alignment, would meet ADA requirements. Both over and under options were evaluated. So, an overpass, a bridge, and then an underpass, culvert. The design criteria for all the alternatives were per the IDOT Bureau of Local Roads and Bureau of Design and Environment manuals. And then there were 3 alternatives that were ultimately deemed to be preferred and advanced for further study. Again, structure types were not evaluated as part of the study. It was simply looking at the alignments. And then the findings were all summarized in a technical memorandum that was dated December 8th, 2025. And I believe you have all that. You have that in your agenda packet. So by way of evaluation criteria, we kind of funneled all of our alignments through these criteria: real estate and right-of-way impacts, safety, perceived indirection. What I mean by that is how far away from the intersection or how far away from a straight line are you traveling? Wetlands and environmental impacts, constructability, utility impacts, and then construction costs. So I have all the alternatives that we evaluated on the slides here, but they're also in your packet. We don't need to go through each of them. You can see some of them, if you look here, this one brings you pretty far away from the intersection. So that one was eliminated. I'll go through the preferred alternatives that were ultimately selected. So alternative 3 of 11 was brought forward to be preferred. This is a bridge over Randall Road south of Main Street with loop ramps on each side. Alternative 4 is a bridge over Randall Road, also south of Main Street, with a loop ramp on the west side and then a parallel ramp on the east side. And then alternative 9 is the culvert or underpass under Randall Road, south of Main Street, with ramps paralleling Randall Road. So the alternatives that were brought forward, there's a common theme here. They're all south of Main Street. And the reason for that, off to the right on this graphic, the Randall Road profile slopes down as you move to the south. So as you kind of imagine, you have to have a ramp that goes up to the bridge or down to a culvert. You're not fighting that profile. So it helps you on the south side. That's why where we landed with all the preferred alternatives south of Main. So this is alternative 3. This is the alternative with the bridge in red shown, and then the loop ramps to meet ADA criteria on both sides. And then we have renderings of what that would look like. So those are the alternative 4. It's somewhat similar. It's a bridge south of Main Street with a loop ramp on one side and then parallel ramps on the east. So this is what that alternative would look like. I think that's a good view, giving you an idea. And the last is a alternative 9, which is the path under Randall Road, south of Main Street, with ramps leading down to the underpass on the east and west side of Randall. Renderings aren't as poppy, I guess, with the underpass, but it's a good alternative to consider. Then the summary of the preferred alternatives, this is summarized in the concept report. So this, alternative 3, 4, and 9 are shown and how they weigh up against the various criteria. And I'll just highlight the project cost because I'm sure there'll be questions about that. The underpass alternative 9 is between 2 and 2.4 million. And then alternatives 3 and 4, the overpass, are somewhat similar in construction costs, ranging from between 3 and 4.3 million. Unknowns that are in need of further study and consideration. First of all, the future widening of Randall Road. The widening of Randall Road is in Kane County DOT's long-range plan. We're unsure of the timing of that. I believe they are too. Comments on the report from the DOT, that technical memorandum was sent to them in early December. So we're waiting on comments. Future development of the Mooseheart property, that would have an impact on whatever we choose or how we move forward, and then available funding. And then in regards to next steps, the city, City Council would approve to move forward with preliminary engineering, which is what we call a phase 1 study, and then begin programming funds for engineering and construction in the city's future budgets. Perform a phase 1 study to enhance chances of garnering outside funding with any money that involves state or federal funds. Having a formal phase 1 study is essential, and projects that have that already in the making are looked upon favorably. And then apply for outside funding. There's 2 major funding sources that that this project would qualify well for. One of those is the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program, ITEP, and then congestion mitigation and air quality. And there's others as well, but those are the two major ones. And then we would continue coordination with the DOT and then monitor future developments in the area. That's what I have in the way of presentation. We can answer any questions. Sure.
So wouldn't you say, based upon what we were just looking at and concerns about widening and some other issues, that the most adaptable of the ones would be the underpass on Alternative 9?
Yeah, and that is actually explained in the technical memorandum as well as one of the benefits of that alternative.
Yeah, it's
no, that alternative does have the most disruption of traffic, though, because you're basically digging a hole in Randall Road. So
Slight disruption in traffic, but it's the cheapest and it's the most adaptable. So for a short-term disruption, long-term, I think it's the best.
And to kind of piggy off what was just said there, as a parent of the west side, I can tell you the Randall Road crossing has always been a no-go zone for my children. I said, do not cross Randall Road, right? It doesn't mean they didn't. It just means we said no. And I'm sure that's the norm for most parents around there. You're going to laugh. So all the kids, they all hang out at Target. They all hang out at Chuck E. Cheese sometimes. But I mean, all their meeting places are north of Main Street, right? So my question is, if we all agree that the underpass is the way to go, does that mean, does that give us the option to move it north? And I'll tell you why. It'll be much easier to sell to the public if we can just say, hey, we're going to do an underpass right where your kids are currently going, behind your back, right? That'll be an easier sell by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk to that. So the reason they're all on the south side is particularly the right-of-way impacts and real estate impacts. So in order to implement one of the options on the north side, there'd be significantly larger impacts to the existing businesses in order to get kind of the acceptable radius for bikes. To get that to fit in within the existing footprint was very difficult and meet the existing standards for bikes. There's also additional utility impacts. And we're fighting the grades. So I think one of the things about the underpass on the south side, it fits really well with the existing ground out there. It's also very open. To put something on the north side, you're going to end up with retaining walls lining the underpass. It's not going to feel as open and as safe. And I think what I've found in other underpass projects, that's a big deterrent for people using an underpass. If they don't feel like it's open, they're not as likely to use it, and then you're yeah.
I get that. I don't mean to overly challenge, but the reality of it is, when you look at who actually crosses Randall Road, it's teenagers. It's not me, right? It's not adults, right? And that's where they're going. So just FYI.
Yeah, definitely understand that. One thing I was going to add is that this study kind of became a process of elimination, where these three were almost the only ones that were really anywhere close to being feasible. So that's kind of, picking those three actually wasn't that difficult.
And I would like to add that this was also in the KDOT, our long-term traffic study, and we are doing this in conjunction with them. They participated in a cost share on this project with us. So we are, we've done a few projects with them along this stretch of roadway. So this was the desired location to look at. And as Elisa said, they're definitely a little bit more, it's a little more open. We have a lot of electric in that area. And I know just by looking at all the right-of-way permits we get, there's lots of communication lines up and down that corridor. So that is kind of why we started with this location. And it's also in the bike and ped plan to be looking at this location as well to coordinate Main Street or some, one of our main arterials out that direction.
So one concern I have just as Main Street currently is without it. I know we have a future plan for Main Street to redo it. But the high school is on the north side of Main Street. And I agree that I live right in that area, so I'm through that intersection all the time. I live on Main Street, or right off Main Street by the high school. And currently, I would say the majority of people going through that intersection are teenagers. I have a teenage son. We have a similar, he's been allowed to roam Batavia at free will, but not cross Randall Road. Again, he has. But currently, though, I see, kids coming back and forth from the high school, and we don't have a safe way for them to cross Main Street to get to this pass, wherever, if it's over or under. But that is probably something that would be included in a future Main Street update. But it would need to be included, because otherwise this investment is kind of worthless in my mind if we're still having kids having to cross a fairly busy road and a very busy intersection that is not a safe intersection, even if they're going north-south. So that's one concern. And then, underpasses, as a woman, for children, they're not the most desirable. And so, especially in the evening or at night, last night I was going through that intersection, and there was about 4 teenage boys on bikes trying to cross Randall Road, and it was really interesting trying to watch them and all the traffic navigate each other. And I was like, okay, let's hope everybody's paying attention. So those are my concerns. I mean, this is a huge investment. It's a lot of money, and just want to make sure that whatever we do will actually be used, because teenage boys will find the shortest path, not the safest. So.
I want to echo a lot of those same concerns, because at least the way the area is laid out right now, we're turning one crossing at grade into 2 crossings at grade on the side streets, and those can be just as dangerous due to people turning right or turning left, not looking into the pedestrian crossing. I do think a tunnel, I think ideally on the northern side. I recognize the issues with tunnels, but the topology here favors them, especially given the elevations for the bridges are like 30 feet in almost all the examples, which would be quite a bit of a incline, even though it is graded well with loops. I'm looking at alternative 6, which is the tunnel on the north end. I can definitely see some right-of-way concerns. Could some of those be alleviated if we allowed the bikeway angle clearance to be not met as well there? I think that would be a reasonable trade-off. And in fact, actually, kind of what I would like to see with this design is one that was accessible from both sides, really, from north and south, because that would also benefit the bus stops just north of there for people who might stop at the easternmost bus stop who want to get to Jewel or other stores there. They would be much more easily able to cross the street or to get across to get to the other bus stop, should they need to, in circumstances like that. So I would see an advantage to having a dual way connection there, perhaps like a straight shot with the tunnel being more perpendicular to those with an opening, of course, to make sure people aren't hiding around the corner for safety purposes. And there are other ways we can handle safety issues with, we have the downtown cameras now, expanding that there, as well as the police safety podiums. We don't have any in town now. This would be a good case for them. But I do recognize the topology challenges here. Could that be evaluated a bit more? Because it would lead, I could see it lead to a cost increase. I don't know what it is now, just sitting here. You guys would have to provide something like that. But it might be worth the added cost, because I could see this design or a similar design be used a lot more than one on the south end. And at the end of the day, if you're spending the money, it's best to get a solution that, gets the most bang for the buck, even if the buck is larger. So that's my take. I will say, if we do choose a one on the south end, going back to the Main Street reconstruction, if I recall, that the plan for that was bike lanes on each side on street. It's been a while. Am I mistaken?
I actually thought it was bike path adjacent to the roadway. Is that?
Okay.
Well, for this section,
been a while.
it would be on-street bike lanes,
On-street?
dedicated
Okay.
bike lanes. Yeah.
Could we, I know there were a few options that were proposed. Could we, if we did do build on the south end, could we transition instead to a shared bidirectional path on the south end to best utilize this? That would make more sense to me because we often have a lot of trouble with what happens to bike lanes when we get to intersections, and this would be especially a thorny one. So,
Yeah, we'd have to look at that. I'm not sure if that's allowed to have bidirectional bike lanes, but we'd have to take a look at that. And the same side of the street, yeah, I don't know.
or a shared use path even. Not even bike lanes, but like a shared use path.
I don't know how much right of way we have on the south side of Main Street.
And just an update, Chris was part of the team that worked with Tim, and I think he probably was the one that finished all the documents for Main Street. We resubmitted for KKCOM just last month. We'll get the draft of those projects that were selected for funding, and they also broke that up into 2 phases because the cost of construction is getting pretty extreme. So obviously, there's a lot of things that are out there that are unknown. We're just kind of bringing this to your attention as it was something that we were asked to explore the options and kind of let you guys see this, give us your feedback, where you want us to go. I do not believe we have money budgeted for exploring further at this point, but we would need to know by the middle of this year so we could budget for like a phase 1 if that's the route we'd want to go and explore looking for grants and if which options you have. And I don't know if you guys have the distance from the intersection to where these mid-block crossings are on the north side. I think internally staff comments were that's really far. I don't know if anybody's going to walk that far to go up. So I know when they're closer on the south side, they were a little bit more condensed because some of them were like halfway up in between Main and Wilson just to get the ADA requirements.
Right. Yeah. You're limited to a maximum of 5% grade to meet ADA. So that's why you see these long stretches here, like this one. And that's one of the factors that they used to kind of filter through these, was to look at the distance they had that you'd have to walk. What's the term you guys used for that? Perceived indirection.
Right, it depends on, obviously, hearing you guys speak, a lot of people are going to the shopping and the commercial on that west side. I think one of the other things we took into account is there's a kind of a trail network that exists on the west side as well, and providing this grade separated crossing would then kind of provide that connectivity from that trail network on the west into the Main Street network from the Main Street study and then into downtown in the Park District and provide that connectivity from the west side all the way into the schools and the Park District and and the downtown area. So we were not, I guess, we see the commercial, but we wanted to also provide connectivity as a whole for the bike and pedestrian network.
Yeah, and you need to, I think the best way to look at this is, if you built this right now, it wouldn't exactly make sense, but you have to look at this in the future and how this is going to look, maybe how the surrounding area is going to be 10 years from now. Some of these amenities that kind of currently aren't there and leave this on an island would potentially be filled in the future.
Well, I believe Alderman White has had his hand up for a minute, but just in case Alderwoman Lohman, I believe she's off screen. If she happens to raise her hand, she might not be able to be seen by us. We're at the Zoom. We're fine? Okay, thank you. So I'll follow Alderman White.
I have to preface all of this by improving crossing of Randall Road. I am 100% for. When I looked at this proposal, when Gary first brought this to the Active Transportation Committee back in the summer, the first thing we said was, why are you doing it at Main Street? Like, of the 5 crossings of Randall, I think that would be number 3 or number 4 on our list to put this crossing there.
And even when you look at it today, to cross there today, you only have sidewalks on 2 of the sides going east-west. And you have to cross twice just to continue your path. You have nothing there by the bank and the Jewel, and you have nothing in the farm field for Mooseheart. So now we're looking at putting an underpass or a bridge connecting a church, a gas station, that regional trail as you go further out to Mooseheart blank property. So absolutely, as a city council member sitting here, there's no way I would want to move forward with millions of dollars and not have that trail continue. And yes, I know we're talking about doing it on Main Street as part of that, but that has to be part of this proposal. We need to drag that right into this because there's no reason to build a $3 million bridge that doesn't connect to something when it opens. That there's just no reason for that. So I think one thing that you mentioned as well was a lot of the right-of-ways as you move further up Randall are really tight. Tim was mentioning that to us in the meeting last night as well. And that's why it wasn't at Wilson. That's why it wasn't at McKee. That's why it wasn't considered at Mill either. So I think that's good food for thought as your constituents or Robin and I being on the west side there have some of these questions that's what drove them to look at Maine.
Yeah, I'll echo some of that. I mean, there's kind of what I want and what I can get. And I think what I'm hearing is that due to the grade, due to the property ownership, north of Maine is really difficult. One request I'll have is just really sell me on that. You know, moving forward, staff, maybe you can kind of dive into the report and really kind of give me a good picture of, am I talking $500,000 can't have it, or am I talking $6 million can't have it, right? Those are kind of different spectrums of can't have it, or just physics, right? Whatever the case might be. Really sell it to me, because being north of Maine, I think as we're hearing, does make a whole lot of sense. That is also my usual spot. I'm there 2 to 3 to 4 times a day on that intersection. And connectivity west is of a high priority for me. And I think a lot of the folks I talk to for recreation purposes, being able to get west is incredibly useful. But also a lot of folks who work at Jewel walk to Jewel, an incredibly high number. And being south of Main Street doesn't get you to Jewel. That grade right there with the bank is, those are steep driveways heading up into the Jewel right there. The Jewel is under that white box for those of you who aren't familiar with that side of town. And where that little loop is in the picture we're looking at right now, that's got to be a 15-foot straight up slope or something of that sort. There's one poor woman who I see walking to work right across there every day who just struggles in the snow. So if we can get north of there, I know it helps folks. So again, like really, I'll take what I can get. If being south of Maine is where we're at, I'm happy, and then we can talk prices, but I also want to be sold on why north of Maine is not great. Of the 3 options that have been recommended, I do, the prices, I see the $1 million difference between the underpass and then the middle cost overpass. From today to construction, we're talking minimum like 5 years. I don't know. I mean, if we're ballparking, we're random, totally crazy.
It's really dependent upon funding.
Yeah, well, it won't be a year.
Right. It won't be a year.
Is the point I'm trying to make.
Like if we were to go as fast as we could, it would be at least 2 years away, I would say, right?
Okay.
More.
Yeah. Gotcha. And I sort of asked that question to tee up when we're talking about that sort of difference. I think pure cost shouldn't be our motivator at the moment, because by the time we get to the point of securing funding, developing plans, blah, 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 we just have no clue, not a clue what it'll actually be. Perhaps digging equipment will all go bad. I don't know, right? And steel will be cheap, or vice versa. So that's just not one of my criteria at the moment, given that they're relatively close in price.
Alderman Beck.
It was before me. If she wants
I'm
to
sorry, I didn't see you.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Mine will be quick. I just want to reiterate, again, looking at this. So high school's on the north side. There's nothing right now on the south side. I understand Mooseheart someday might be developed. But also, when you go west, there's nothing on the south side to Alderperson Malone's point. So you're moving people from the north side of Main Street to the south to cross, and then they have to cross again to get to the north side. And then some of these examples, they're not even getting off the ramp until a whole block down. And so then they have to backtrack to get back to the light to cross the intersection to get to the other side. It's a lot to ask of people. They're not going to do that. Yeah. They're just going to.
And there's no sidewalk there.
And there's no sidewalk there. You know, and I understand that would probably be installed at some point. But we just have to think like human behavior. What will humans do? And I don't know. I have a hard time imagining that humans are gonna, like, unless you're on a bicycle and that extra block doesn't matter. If you're on a bike, that's true. But if you're a pedestrian, that's asking a lot of people. So, and then as I said before, like if it's dropping you, a half block down on the south side, the southwest side of Main Street, now you're just going to have people trying to run across all 3-4 lanes, whatever is there, instead of going back to the light. So,
yeah, I mean, I would say that's why a lot of those alternatives were initially we didn't use those as preferred because we recognize that is something that people aren't necessarily going to do. So we wanted to take that into account. That's why a lot of the ones that were preferred are shorter. They're less in direction. That's why a lot of the ones to the north that required a much longer path where you could see the bridge, the bridge is a block away. No one's going to use that. We recognize that. And so we wanted to bring forward the ones that had the least amount of indirection that would be more palatable, I guess, for the pedestrian. But I also recognize that, yes, it depends on where we see people going. We want this to be useful for those going to destinations, but also for those kind of using it as a connective point.
I wanted to second what Dustin said about considering option 6 as maybe an alternative that we add into the ones we pursue with the connectivity to Wilson Street as well. When I'm evaluating this, I am thinking from a purely walking, biking as transportation and discounting the trail connections on the west side, just knowing that, yes, those exist. Those are great amenities. The folks that are out there road biking out west of town are going to be fine taking an extra loop, or they're going to be fine just crossing Randall because they're comfortable bike riders, right? They are not the people that I'm considering when we're making these types of decisions. I like the connectivity to the bus stops very much. I also think working with the property owners of the Jewel complex to add a direct path through the grass as we're thinking about like what humans are going to do. They're going to wear some demand paths through that grass anyway and walk right into the parking lot. They're not going to walk back down and get to a sidewalk on Main Street or on Wilson Street to go up to Jewel. And that's what we want. Like we want more people to have more access to our economic center up here that don't currently have access. So that would connect a lot of dots that I would feel very comfortable with that option. It would still give me some heartburn to have an underpass, as Alderperson Lehman was talking about. That's not my most comfortable place to be. So an overpass would always be preferred. Understand the feasibility of it in that spot. I will take what we can get and not necessarily everything that I want, but I would just like to add that into the consideration.
One of the things we can do is check with Geneva has an underpass in their community, and my understanding is they have had very little incident of safety concerns happen there, but I will reach out to our counterparts up there and get that.
St. Charles does as well.
St. Charles does.
St. Charles as well.
Yeah. And it's so popular, I found out it existed last night.
I would like to add with the connectivity for trails, just for you guys to know, I worked on a bunch of these projects, and with some of the developments we've had coming through, I think part of this is to get your residents from west of Randall Road access to the river if they want to bike and come down to town. With Tanglewood, there's all the paths through there. With the bridge on Deer Path, we put the path and the sidewalk on either side. We did the improvement at Deer Path and Main with the light, and Deer Path sidewalk now connects all the way from Wilson to McKee with the addition of the Ignite medical facility, and we have that mid-block crossing. We have the bike path that went into Winding Creek and goes up along the McKee Road tributary that can take you all the way up to Geneva to the middle schools and Peck Farm. So I understand your point of trying to get just residents that might live directly east or west to the other side, but if you're looking from a connectivity for an overall bike and ped connectivity and trying to utilize some of those outside features that the city has, those are some things to consider as well.
And I think then connecting it to Wilson Street, if people are coming down Main Street from the west that live out west of town, come down Main Street and then cross and can get access to Wilson Street. I know that Main Street will look very different by the time we're doing this, but I know I cycle on Wilson Street over Main Street just from a comfort level myself. So I would come down Main Street, cross over, go down Wilson Street to get into downtown and get to the river. And that's where all the river access is anyway. So.
Yeah, just a quick note. So it's not a coincidence those of us with teenage children who live on the west side are saying this needs to be farther north, okay? Because, yeah, speak for yourself, right? And there is a whole circuit. It involves Starbucks, it involves Target, it involves Play-Doh closets, right? And these kids just circle the whole time. They meet their friends. They'll spend hours there, right? Feel free to engage the businesses there, because I'm sure they're seeing this too and would prefer to have a crossing closer to Wilson, meaning that if there's a larger impact, whether we're worried about easements, whether we're worried about connections or whatever the issues actually are, I'd pull those landowners in, because they're seeing those kids run around on bikes too on Randall, and I'm sure they've had many, gasp moments just watching all this stuff kind of nearly happen. So just a thought.
A few quick questions. First off, at this stage, we're pretty much done with Strand and Associates. Is that right? Our contract with them is sort of, they've done the work they were going to do for us, and we're done with them. So to Alderman Fehrenbach's point, I think when we say engage with property owners, that might be us, the city, not Strand the Associates, right? And so then what is the next step that I'm trying to figure out here today? Are we picking the alternatives we want to look into further, or are we just saying, hey, let's get some feasibility studies going?
So this is the feasibility study.
Phase 1 studies.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Andrea.
and we were just looking to see, so again, Main Street is both Main Street west of Randall, and Randall is KDOT jurisdiction. So they would be partnering with us potentially, or at least being involved in the decision. Unfortunately, their funding doesn't allow for them to have some types of projects like this, but we would be looking for funding. We're just looking for direction. If you think that this is a good type of project for us to look at a feasibility study when budget time comes around, we can bring this back for future discussions. And it's just looking to give us direction. Is this a good option? Do we want to pursue looking into this a little bit further? And as we've all mentioned, we don't have the money right now, but we would need to be looking for funding. Are we going to be budgeting? Do we want to put money towards this? I know Peggy's not here. I don't know that she would necessarily want to bond for some of this. Those are all discussions, because we have all the different projects with Main Street coming out and how we're going to be able to pay for that. But some of the missing sidewalk links would obviously have to be addressed. And we were just kind of looking at that at the current location. So just looking for some guidance on what your thoughts are for moving forward.
So I think with those questions answered, thank you. That's very helpful. What that kind of tells me is that a lot of our community outreach component of this is still in the future, right? So as we kind of figure out what we're looking for, we will need to do what we did with the South River Street corridor, what we've done with the IRP, what we do as good practice. Like, let's ask the business owners, let's poll the high school students, let's talk to the parents, and then we can find out, like, is being north of Maine worth the added cost and heartache and all that, or do we need to go south of Maine? And just to wrap up what I'm saying here, I think adding in that alternate option makes sense. Like, have one north option in there, just so that we can have that comparison. Here are the south options, which are in the $2 to $3 million range, and here's this north option that is a bit billion, whatever it is.
I would say if we're going to do one north of that, it needs to be, instead of the inverted U there, it needs to be an H shape where it connects to both Main Street and Wilson. Like Abby said, I think that's really important if we're going to do that, especially somewhat mid-block there, that we make it available for any crossing from either one of the two east-west routes.
I would just add that we didn't show everything in this report that we looked at. There's some things that we kind of briefly touched on and decided not to include in the report, but we did get some questions from active transportation. And so, okay, why don't you have one? Why don't you have it a Y so it can go down to Main and also send you up to Wilson Street? One of the issues I think came up with that is that you would these paths generally have retaining walls on the side of them, and so if you had it, you would essentially have retaining walls on both sides of the street from Main Street all the way to Wilson. Is kind of how you would end up. It would end up being quite a project if you wanted to have it go in both directions.
And also, wouldn't that make it quite a bit less adaptable? Quite a bit less adaptable if we're going to be widening this road?
Correct.
With retaining walls that are there that would need to be obviously demolished then? And
yes. Yeah. So we did kind of look at that and we decided not to include it. But a big variable, there's a lot of unknowns with this project. The big variable on this is the widening to 6 lanes of Randall Road, which is on the Kane County's long-term plan, on their 2050 plan. So we certainly don't want to do anything like put the abutments in exactly the wrong spot that they would have to be then moved. Okay, so those are some of the other things we were kind of looking at. So unfortunately, we don't really have the plans for that, and we would just be guessing as to what that would involve. But you can kind of imagine everything would just get bumped out. The whole thing would be wider. So you'd be taking up more right of way. So there's a lot of things that we didn't exactly include in here just to keep it a little bit concise. But we did look at many of these things, and some of them are just not feasible.
Apologies, I do have to excuse myself.
I'm really hopeful that by 2050, we learn that adding 2 more lanes is not going to fix it or anything anywhere. At work, we just purchased some land on Randall Road way up north, and we are in talks with the township who owns property across the street on adding a pedestrian bridge over Randall Road to connect what will be a forest preserve to some Parks District land across the way. So KDOT got involved right away because expansion projects. And up there, they have 10 to 15,000 cars more a day than we do down here. Assuming the county is not going to tackle all of Randall Road at once, I think we are on the lower end of the traffic counts currently. Let's hope it stays that way. Let's hope that by encouraging walking and biking, we can be part of that solution. And I just don't want to make or postpone or delay or cancel safety improvements for biking and walking because we might have more cars there someday and we might have to move something. I want to keep us on the proactive train here. I wish it was a train. Proactive mindset here for safety.
To that end, do you have a suggestion on what direction to take with the information presented here?
Real quick, Laura, I was able to find the report that you guys gave us with the cost for alternative 6 had 3.4 to 4.7 million. Okay. So it was kind of in the ballpark.
Could you just repeat that real quick? I'm sorry.
Oh, 3.4 to 4.7 for alternative 6.
So in that regard, Alderperson Beck, did you mean that we should just keep pursuing the project?
Yes, and keep pursuing option 6 as well.
Option 6.
It is a little higher, but again, it's not that much higher than either of the bridges. So it's already kind of within our scope. It is more, but it also would be far more effective.
So, I mean, is it my turn? There's been all these comments about the way humans operate and what they do. If this is alternative 6, you're saying they're going to go all the way up, almost to Wilson Street, to cross the bridge, to go all the way back down to Main Street. How's that feasible? I mean, that's counter to what everybody just said about, the way people just try to move and what they basically do in terms of the way they're going to operate and if it's going to be convenient or inconvenient. I mean, it argues that's the exact same thing. You're going halfway up to go all the way back down.
Except that can I speak now? Yes. Thank you. Because it's already on the north side where everybody's already coming and going to, and it's right at the intersection. So it's not like half a block down. So that specifically on this one.
I sneak one in here real quick. And it's 2 less crossings of Main Street.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point earlier, was the back and forth crossing across Main Street. Do we have any idea when the Main Street project reconstruction might happen, or I remember at one point it was going to be like in 2029 or something.
Yeah, so we had to reapply for funds for that. And so actually we just did that a few weeks ago.
Okay.
So, but that pushes back the timeline years.
Okay.
And I will add that, so these funds, the funds that we get from CMAP are capped at $2.5 million. And so this project, if we were to do the entire thing, it's more like 8 or 9 million. And so what we're trying to do is break it up into smaller bites. So for this application, we stopped at the fire station. We just went from Van Norwick to the fire station. Possibilities to fill the gap in later with some other funding, but just because of that cap, we shrunk it down. So even if we got the funding, it still kind of excludes that section there by Mooseheart.
Okay, that's helpful, because then if we don't have a plan for Main Street between the fire station and Randall Road, then this really has to be on the north side, because we can't be asking everybody to just be crossing back and forth without sidewalks, without crosswalks, without anything happening on the south side. So, if we knew that the Main Street reconstruction project was going to be happening first, and then we could plan for that, then perhaps a south crossover would make sense. But if we don't have a plan, then I just don't see that working.
The one thing I did want to mention is, okay, so we have to be a little bit careful with that money that is shown for some of these other options that we didn't include, because we basically, with the 3 options that we fine-tuned this down to, then we got more of a accurate estimate. So for the other options, those are maybe not quite as fine-tuned, and some of them may not even really be possible, because unless you want to just knock down some adjacent buildings. So, or really go into, get a lot of property from the Shell station or whatever.
Nancy?
Yeah, thank you guys for putting in the work and putting this in front of us. That being said, I tend to agree. I mean, a lot of people have made a lot of great points here. You put conceptual drawings in front of us, we all get excited. So, I mean, very exciting stuff. But I truly think, as everyone's mentioned, I mean, I don't think we got what we kind of wanted out of this in terms of, and maybe that's on us. We should have been more specific. But I think when we meant feasibility, I think we meant feasibility of what we wanted, right? And I don't think, if this truly is the only feasible way to cross, and when I say feasible, what is that spectrum, right? Whose feasibility are we talking about? Is this a physical feasibility, financial, both? And I think we just need more detail as this council on what that looks like for 3 options north, right? Even if they're technically, quote unquote, unfeasible at the end of it, I think that's what we wanted to hear, because at the end of the day, we need to bring this information, we are right now publicly in front of our constituents, right? And I think most of them would feel the same way we are in terms of most of the crossings. I rarely see people crossing at Main Street. As everyone's mentioned, it's all the kids going to Target as a Target commercial. But that is where the vast majority of the crossings that I see. I'm almost, even though I love, again, the conceptual drawings and the idea, we got our lunch handed to us a little bit on a ramp we just did down the way here for a few million bucks. So, we really want to be good stewards of this, make sure we're doing the right thing. And money, I don't think is definitely the main driver. I obviously speak for myself there, but we're at the point with this town where we need to make the right calls and for the right reasons. And again, I'm not going to rehash everyone's points. I think everyone made some great points. I tend to fall into the tunnel category. 100% hear the concerns there, but I think most of that can be alleviated with city surveillance and lighting. Lighting's huge in those scenarios. So, and potentially emergency help points or whatever that people were mentioning. But I would love to see something like that. What does a tunnel look like anywhere up in that region where we're seeing folks, mainly kids, crossing? And what does that look like? Again, to Alderman Malone's point, is that 12 million bucks instead of 8 all in, and that's just not swallowable for this town right now? Or what is that, right? Because I do think there's a big distinction in going out and spending 4.5 to 8 or whatever it is to do a bridge or one of these other concepts, when in all reality, it's not really what we wanted. It kind of gets the job done, so to speak, of crossing Randall, but it's not that long-term, really nice fix in the right spot that we wanted it. And again, maybe that's not even possible from a physicality standpoint or whatever, but I think we just needed a little more definitive response in that direction is kind of what I was looking for, and hopefully we can continue to get somehow.
Part of the feasibility of that too is we'll always need KDOT's permission. So they may have issues
We
with
love departments
us
of transportation.
attempting the crossing at a different intersection as well.
Yeah. No, I get it. There's a ton of constraints. I was just saying, we dove into the 3 that kind of seemed feasible to you guys. Let's move that feasibility scale. Maybe I think we're all, willing to gamble a little bit more, or take a look at some, that's the wrong word, not gamble, but take a look at a little more costly, a little more labor intensive, or whatever it might be to get what we want.
Yeah, as most of you know, I serve as the chairman of the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning's Council of Mayors downtown. And we're the ones that decide where all this money is going to go and who's going to get the money and whatever have you. I was in a meeting today. I was not at the meeting. I was doing it online. I had the Kane County Highway Department folks with me at the meeting. And I will tell you just a number. Right now, along Randall Road from Carpentersville down to Montgomery, which is the entire length of the thing, supposedly there's been conversations or inquiries about building at least 20 of these underpasses, overpasses, however you want to do it. So the competition on the street, when you get in there, there's huge competition for these things, and I don't know who's going to get them and who isn't going to get them. And the kind of the conversation that's going on there in the moment is that we have a U.S. president who's a Republican, and we have a governor of the state of Illinois who's a Democrat, who has now announced that he's interested in running for president. And so the politics don't really work well. And supposedly the word around out is that, well, in Illinois, don't give them nothing. So we'll see where all this goes. I mean, right now, our staff here and our consultants, I think, are doing an excellent job trying to put something through, but the politics of the moment are about as bad as they can be. So I would not get your hopes up too high or get too excited that something's going to happen here in the near term, because it's just not the right time at the right place. And I don't think it's going to happen. And there's already a line at the door of people wanting to do this same idea in all of our neighboring communities. So don't start going out and talking to your constituents and saying, hey, we're going to get Batavia building underpasses or overpasses or tunnels or whatever we want to call them along Randall Road in Batavia in the near term.
I think as long as we know that this is going to take to happen, I don't think it's the wrong thing to do to make the plan.
Yeah.
And to try to figure out what we think will work for our community 5, 10, 20 years from now. So I don't think we should worry about today's politics to get something that we feel is going to be a benefit for our community by the time we figure out how to fund it. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but I think that's what we have to do. And I think we have to think 10, 20 years from now is what that benefit's going to be and what does it really provide at that point, and then figure out how to get there.
I don't like any of it. I think what we need to do is we need to get that intersection fixed with KDOT first. And as we're planning and preparing things, that we are planning for some sort of crossing at Main and Randall. I don't see the kids going up the block. If they're not going to go south, they're not going to go north if they even cross there. And even coming down from Wilson, I don't see them coming down from Wilson to cross over, because that's an even farther place. But I think what the key to this long term is to really fix that intersection and making sure that we have crosswalks on both sides of Main Street. So whenever we get to doing that reconstruction, having that, so that way we have sidewalks on both sides. Because I think that's going to be imperative, especially going, I don't know, what are we going, west on Main Street? I think that's going to be important to have sidewalks there also for people. So I think this is a long-term vision. I don't see this, I would not be comfortable spending $5 million to do that proposal to the north at this point, because I don't see it being used.
I just wanted to ask, I don't think there are any plans from KDOT to make any improvements to this intersection at this time.
No, not at this time. It's on their 2050 plan. But
Okay.
Yeah, I get that. I think that's what we have to put in the vision, very long term, because we're going to also have to put in sidewalks along Main Street there. And I think that if that is something that we're committed to, that's something that making sure that people are safe and are able to get to the places, this is something that is going to be a long-term plan. I would not be comfortable, again, spending that kind of money for anything to the north right now, because I don't see it being used.
I would just like to let you know that Regan Boyle is in the audience. He's one of the active transportation members, and I believe he has some comments. So whenever you are ready, he would like to.
Just time check too.
Can I make one addition?
Oh, absolutely.
In the memo, it did state that one of our potential options would be to request KDOT to maybe put in like a pedestrian island. I think I remember seeing that in there.
Or that they had plans on it.
Yeah, it seemed like it was actually further along than I would have expected.
Yeah, I saw that too. Would love clarification on that.
Pedestrian island on Randall?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A refuge, yeah.
A refuge.
They're very popular and they're well used on roads of that size.
We're at around here,
So it was in the memo in being at the Main Street intersection there somewhere.
Yeah, it was one of the possible alternatives to not selecting one of these.
No, what I'm asking is where are they locally? I mean, are there anything else in Kane
Randall
County
and
that they're using them?
Fabian. I think they have those there.
They have them like on the little pork
Randall
chops.
and Fabian. They have like the pork chops, and then I think there's a center with the
Oh, okay.
landscaping.
I thought you were talking like mid road anywhere for
Yeah,
it.
like in the center turn lane, like
In the turn lanes,
so you
yeah,
cross two
the
lanes,
little
wait,
chops,
and then
okay.
go to the other two.
I'd be curious what was intended there. It is just a small blurb in the memo, so I'm not 100% sure what it was referring to. But that sort of sits along Jen's suggestion, which I do, especially if that's a more like near-term solution, would be also just good to approach. Anything.
I'm with Tim. We need to do the right thing,
Yeah.
whether it's short term or long term. If this is something where we're like, we've got a plan for long term, that's what we got to do. If that means 20 councils from me now finally put in something, and if we start putting down the nibbles for them to kind of follow that,
We
then
don't
we've
want to
made
do
our
that,
mark.
but, you know.
Right. Are you cold? All right, sorry.
Right next to the door.
Okay.
Direction, go ahead, Regan.
Yeah.
No, at the risk of perpetuating this, again, my name's Regan Bull. I'm the chairperson for the Active Transportation Commission. We've been privy to this plan for a couple of years now, as Bob mentioned earlier, and so did Dustin. And we were equally as excited as most of you guys in the room are. I mean, it's fun looking at concepts, whether they're going under or over. We love it all. But we've had the opportunity to really get a chance to discuss this. Not with you folks, but with the city and Public Works, and we've had all the same questions you guys have had. We've had a lot of the same thoughts you guys have had. Obviously, we're very much pro for it. Regardless of the timeline, this does fit into our bike and ped plan. This is a crucial link to connect the east side and the west side, as most of you guys have already mentioned. And it's not just for the children, but it's for the commuters. It's for the people that work. And it's to expand projects that are happening downtown and the development that's happening out west, as already been mentioned. There's some awesome bike paths out there, pedestrian paths. It's an access to other kind of just recreational bicycling in general. Now, again, we did discuss some specifics, much as you guys have here tonight, and we came right out of the box with why not McKee, why not Wilson, just as you guys have. That is the most logical place. We don't disagree with that at all. It's the same place where, as an avid cyclist, where I would cross is up there. I've never actually crossed the street at Wilson or at Main Street. But it is important to remember that because we do have the bike ped plan in place, there are plans to add bike routes on Main Street. So let's not forget that either. And that is a long-term project. This isn't something that's going to be done in a couple years even. I appreciate the understanding that we're looking at this long-term. I appreciate that you guys are just actually discussing it. It makes us excited as a whole. We would love to see it up at McKee or Wilson. We think those are great options. But we're also kind of discussed it last night in preparation for being here. As much as Bob said, we'll take what we can get also. So as you guys continue to discuss this, we ask you to keep in mind the bike and ped plan. We've made some great strides in the past few years. We're still waiting on our, not to put Max on the spot here, but we're still waiting on how our application went this year for being a bicycle-friendly community. But this would ultimately add a great deal to that when we have to reapply again in 5 years, because it's going to link so many of our network trails together. So again, I just didn't want to take too much time tonight, but you guys are having a great discussion, and I just love watching. So thank you.
Just real quick, you know, kind of to Mayor's point, and I hear it loud and clear on the politics side, but for us here, what we're trying to do, I mean, you know, this could be something that gets put out to referendum and passes in this town, because it's not a giant, it's not 140 million. And it's something everyone's asked for a long time. I think our community is getting more active by the month, you know, as kids are growing up, and just, it's kind of our culture here. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Like, I don't think we should wait for them. Let's keep it going and then see what the costs look like. And
Well, could I propose that Chris and maybe Tony and Elisa and we reach back out to KDOT, kind of have discussions with them about what was discussed here. We can come back as staff and report those findings back to you on what they think is feasible, what may or may not work, and then we can kind of go from there. We still have plenty of time because, again, we're not really continuing much further on this at this point. We just need to look at the future and making sure that we have time to adequately prepare for that and get money in the budget if we so desire, or if you guys so desire to move forward in 2027 with additional studies and engineering and surveying and utility locates to figure out what's actually out there and how much it's going to cost to move all those things, because there is a lot. I have the map up on my computer. Electric, storm, sewer, and those are only the ones I can see. I know there's lots of private utilities.
Crosstown water main, don't forget that one.
Yeah,
Stay
crosstown
away from
water
that.
main and our fiber and all that are at Main and Randall. Yes. Moose likes to remind Moose and Steve and Jeremy. Remember that stuff is right there. There's big lines. We know. So I will have us go back and we'll talk with KDOT and we'll bring it back and maybe next month sometime or March and let you guys know and go from there.
Just real quick, thank you for sharing about, just reminding us about the bike ped plan. Because I think we are coming to this conversation with our different perspectives and our concerns. Like, obviously mine is about safety for children crossing this intersection, like just specifically just thinking about this intersection and the things that are happening there, just because that's what I see. But, a larger goal and a larger plan would be keeping in mind the connectivity between the east and the west side. And so that's a different discussion. That's a different conversation, which, so it's just, where's the priority? Because I think then that's what comes into play. And that's like all of our discussions. We're all coming at it with our own perspectives, with our own preferences and all of that. And then it's just kind of trying to chisel away to, as a whole, what is our priority as the city and what are our goals? So, that is helpful just to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, safety is obviously a concern, but what's the broader conversation happening here?
And just to kind of put a button on it, yes, I think what Andrea proposed is great. We should do that so long as we're also looking at a north option and then the 3 proposed south options, right? Because I think what I heard from everybody, it feels as if we want to really just have that comparison. We want to make sure we can compare a north option to the recommended south options on that. That's kind of what I'm hearing at the table here, as well as then to what Leah was just sharing. The next steps will be the community outreach, and I think we'll need to be really intentional about the findings that come back from KDOT that we got from this study to find out, would the public support the data that we've collected going north of Maine, or would the public want us to go south, right?
Just don't go to referendum with 3 choices. It doesn't work.
One choose.
Outreach too, I wanted to shout out that the BATAC is working on getting a high school liaison, who I'm sure would actually have a lot of help in informing this, because as we've seen, there's a lot of folks in the high school who may be using this. So just kind of another shout out of support for that program that we're seeing unveiled in our commissions. So.
And I will say I did get accused of trying to blackmail the church when I forced them to build the sidewalk along Main Street that they didn't do after they did the original church building. And then when they wanted to expand out there, that was the trigger for when they had to do the sidewalk and to ask for the other $20,000 worth of sidewalk or something. We got accused of blackmailing the church and not giving them a permit to expand their school because they had to fix the sidewalk or put in the sidewalk that they agreed to put in. Right. Before that.
Alderperson Lohman has her hand up.
Alice, go ahead.
Hi.
I just wanted to chime in, and I don't want to make this much longer, but Kevin just said that, he'd like to see one good option to the north, but I liked what I heard from Alderperson Landsea when he said he'd like to see 3 good, feasible options. I'm more on that camp where I'd like to see more than one feasible option for the north. And I heard the concerns tonight. I don't want to go over that again. So I understand that. And I'm glad that, Andrea, you're going to reach out to KDOT and ask the question, what is feasible? Just wanted to let everybody know that I'm on board with more options exploring in the north, and all that makes sense for connectivity, and would prefer an overpass for the reasons that were discussed, but understand that the underpass, has its advantages as well. I think that's it. I don't want to keep making this longer. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we got direction. We're good for that. Okay, then we will move on to 7.8, discussion of public works reorganization. Okay.
All right, let me see. Do I just stop sharing this? Okay. I wanted to come back. Oh, this is really loud. Or maybe I'm just tired, but I'm going to make this quick because it's past my bedtime. But as you know, we had some staffing changes since I became director. Rahat had left, and that kind of left a hole with the electric side of our department. And Steve got promoted to the assistant director and took over some of the responsibilities that Rahat had. But as all of us have stepped into these different roles, we're still taking on some of our old ones while trying to get into the new ones. And so there's a hole on that side of the department. So this just kind of explains that we're evaluating it. So much stuff is going on. We are all just trying to adjust to the gap that we had with that staff person being out. And so we've had some discussions since August, September, and we feel that the best way to move forward, knowing that electric also has some potential retirements coming up in 2 to 5 years, just roughly, we're looking at succession planning. And in looking back as part of the history, we had an ops manager before our current one. They had left. A staff member did move from engineering to the ops position to help us out. And looking at where we're at, we talked with them, and they would potentially go back to just doing engineering, where it would leave the ops position open again. And then by allowing that to happen and do that, where we have engineering and then ops again with the assistant director over all of that, it would allow the current ops manager to transition some of their knowledge to an incoming position, which that is one of the most vital things when you're dealing with the succession planning and trying to make sure you get as much institutional knowledge as possible. So with the budget, we put a majority of the budget for this position in there. And a few things changed during that time, but we feel that this is the best way for electric to continue to grow and be able to accomplish all the tasks that they have at hand. Some things right now with the current ops manager, they're still doing electric engineering and they're out in the field. They're dealing with outages, probably like tonight, and the SCADA alarms and all that stuff. So with your blessing, we would be putting out the position internally first to see if there's any people that would want to do the ops manager position and transition some of that stuff from the current one to a future one. And dependent on timing and all that stuff and vacancies, we may or may not need to come back for a budget amendment, and it would not be that substantial. And it is something that we definitely need with all the projects that are going on and backlog of things too. And changing to the electric, like utility network. And as Steve Allen would say, and I will take it from him because I know he's worked in big organizations, that our city runs very lean for an electric utility. 10 linemen, a warehouse person, 2 meters, and then we have, well, we'll count Steve. So we have 3 engineers and a technician, and the technician is new this year to help some of those things. So, and then the admin. And to run the operation that we have and to be on call and responding as quickly as they do. I think they're doing a fantastic job, and this would just enhance what we have. So that was kind of the update. This is where we came. Wendy, Peggy, Laura, myself, we've all had conversations about this. We're all in agreement that this is probably the right step for this. So I included the updated chart, and then we may be back to update the wage and salary ordinance, but I didn't want to put the cart before the horse. So just have to go forward with that. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
See, I think that it's not only just electric utility, but it's also a fiber utility that we have of our own. And I do not see it getting any easier over the next 5, 10, 20 years. I mean, it's going to get more and more complex, especially as we have what I'll say is the bidirectional control of electricity from somebody in our city generating and putting back into our system, or us delivering it to them. That is going to become more and more prevalent, and there's going to be so many changes if we start using more and more electricity to do everything that we do. We're going to have more expertise, more time spent, and more people.
Yes, and Steve is training people because he's one that has most knowledge in the fiber, so he's kind of starting to share that with others. And that's part of the whole plan, is to get more people involved in different aspects of their role so they can learn and not just have it be one person.
I see a lot of nodding heads, and I'm sure it's not just because of the time, but that's definitely something that has to be a priority, to make sure that all of the needs are covered in that, because 1, 2, 3 people, for whatever reason, leave. That's huge holes to fill. And to find somebody that actually understands what our utility does and to be able to run that or maintain and manage it is not going to be easy to find people to replace that.
Definitely not. Okay. After the last time I was here when Brian had left, it was
very hard to find someone.
It was difficult. And so if we have the opportunity while somebody's here to teach, I think it's the best thing. All right.
That sounds good.
Well, that posting will be coming out soon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And since we have like 6 minutes left, we're going to go right through project status, other business, and then we're going to wait on the executive session until next meeting.
Sounds good. So Max is reviewing the IRP questions that we got and the comments from the meetings, and we are working on answering those and compiling it into an easy to understand format for folks. Max, the target date for getting those questions out is March, right? Yeah, we'll beat that. Yeah, we're getting pretty close right now. Anthony has sent the Economic Development Strategic Plan RFP out to the paper to be published for January 9th. And we have packets in at our front desk and also posted on the city website. So that went out on Friday. The Plan Commission will conduct a public hearing on January 21st on the new multifamily project at 400 South River Street. That's the 72-unit multifamily building that will accommodate workforce and affordable housing units, and information is available on the city's website. And then on the COW for January 27th will be the Thompson Farm annexation agreement, and rezoning and conceptual plan will be considered that night. And this was approved by the Plan Commission unanimously on December 17th. Happy to announce that the Ignite Medical Resort Facility at Deer Path in Maine has finally received approval to open from the state, and so they are open for business at this point. Over winter break from school, we made upgrades and switches for the fiber at HC Storm School, and the electric department coordinated the efforts with the school district. And then lastly, just wanted to let everyone know at last night's Historic Preservation Commission meeting, the commission was reviewing proposed amendments to Title 12 of the Municipal Code and held initial discussions regarding the Certificate of Appropriateness approval matrix that they use for items that come before them. And the proposed code amendments with several minor recommended changes were approved, and so that will be coming to the Committee of the Whole and the City Council in the near future for final consideration. And that's all I have.
Just a quick comment on the Historical Preservation Committee changes. This is a big deal. The Batavia Historic District was founded in 2006, impacts wards 4 and 5, and while it helps protect our history when a property is maintained, it also casts a wide net over many non-contributing buildings from the more modern era which have active businesses in them. We currently lack a submission matrix like the one used by Geneva, which streamlines the process by determining which changes to a building actually needs Historic Preservation Commission review and approval. As a result, business owners in this historic district over the years have been forced to jump through hoops for changes that are seem nonsensical from a historical perspective. Looking at the 1980s strip mall at 140 West Wilson, where Riverside, Dadio's, and Prairie Path Cycles are, despite being a modern structure, tenants have faced unnecessary delays for routine maintenance. In June of 2024, we had Batavia Enterprises, in support of Riverside, had to seek Historical Preservation Commission approval just to install a new back door on an existing cinder block wall. Wasn't even public facing. In October of 2005, at the same complex, a simple HVAC upgrade for Riverside was partially delayed because it required historical hearing to swap out the air handlers on the roof. This is while the business was going through an air conditioning outage in the middle of summer, which greatly impacted their business. Implementing a submission matrix in Batavia as currently being discussed. It will be a great benefit for our historical district, and I strongly support it. So there you go.
Some of what you just said is incorrect, but that's okay. I understand your thoughts on that, and you always got to work. It's always don't necessarily need to be just like the city of Geneva, because look at what they're going through right now with their wonderful little building on the river.
Well,
so I'm just going to point those out. I'm just making comments.
Complex.
I don't need a response. I'm just saying those are my comments.
Well, I will tell you that is significant and contributing, where the buildings I'm referring to are non-contributing. So meaning they're not necessarily an important part of the historical district. Before I stop and we all go home, we do have another bit of trivia that popped up this week that I do want to raise awareness of so we can get an answer. One of the candidates running for Illinois governor put out a transparency list. We are on it. We are on the transparency list as part of this list has been published to raise awareness for potential waste in the state budget. Regarding Senate Bill 2510, Section 3245, there's an allocation to the city of Batavia for $160,000 for infrastructure improvements. This has been called out as waste according to this transparency report. If we can get a response that specifies where that money has actually been allocated, that'd be appreciated, because we know that'll come up later. So.
That whole thing that you just brought up there at the end, I'm just, if you could send me something about that.
It is in your
Like,
inbox.
and then in the future, if you wanted to, you could send us that before a meeting, and then we would have the opportunity to respond to it with the information that you're looking for.
I was just made aware of it. I'm just sending it your way. So
I looked at it and didn't see anything for Batavia, but that's just.
I can tell you that in each year, there are appropriations that we find that have been made to the city of Batavia, both in the current year and in past years. And we have tried to chase down where those came from and how to access the funds. And it's been nearly impossible. We've attempted it for the last 3 years. So if there is something that's showing waste in the system, it might be that there are appropriations for cities throughout the state of Illinois that they have no access to. And that it would be a huge waste to be continuing to collect taxpayer money if we are billions of dollars in deficit in our budget.
I agree. I'm just raising awareness.
Yeah, that's,
It'd be interesting to see what it is.
nothing surprises me anymore in the state.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. We broke by 3 minutes.